Okay. Who called this party? We will call the Oak Island Town Council regular meeting of September 9th, 2014 to order. The council will enter into its invocation with Mayor Pro Tempore Medlin, and then we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Stand, please. Join us in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the ability to be here and to serve the people of Oak Island and serve you. And we pray tonight for wisdom and guidance as we deal with the business of this town, the things that we have to deal with, sometimes very difficult things. Sometimes they're very difficult to understand. So we ask for your wisdom, ask for clarity for each of us as we deliberate tonight. There are many on our island tonight who are suffering, who are hurting, and we pray that you bless them. We pray for our men and women of uniform who are in foreign places protecting us tonight so that we can be here and do what we're doing. We pray you bless them and protect them. Again, thank you for every privilege and opportunity you give us to serve you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Medlin. Yes, that sounded good. That many people saying the pledge. I'd like to make a note. Next we go into our council reports, but as we get to that portion of the agenda, I'm going to ask that council consider agenda item old business number 3 about the golf cart regulations. I'm going to ask that council discuss that right after adjustment approval of the agenda and before public comments. So I think that most of you here, there's a lot of you here that are here for that subject, and you'll be able to hear what the council says before you get worried about it. And I'd like to also note that we have Ren Huff here. Ren is sitting right over here. He is a senior at South Brunswick High School, and he is in the Honors Civics and Economics project. His senior project is in Honors Civics, and he's here tonight as part of that project to view a council meeting in session. And then also, Danny Mylott, are you here yet? I've got a resolution for him as part of his senior high school project. He's the one that arranged our blood drive last month. So we are very honored to have these 2 high school students here with us tonight. And there's your future. So let's take care of them. Okay, next, council reports. Councilor Kaiser.
No report.
Councilor Scott.
Report.
Councilor Medlin.
No report.
No report.
Madam Mayor, Council, can I indulge for a minute?
Please.
I'd like to say just a little bit about why I'm here. I'm here because I represent the people of this town. Number one goal. Past councils have sit up here before I got in office. They did things that I didn't like their point of views. Their point of views wasn't my point of views. Nobody in this audience or on this council is exactly the same. Everybody has point of views, and we should cherish those point of views. That's what makes us who we are. I think when you sit here and you address anybody, you address them with respect. I'm going to respect you in the audience. I'm going to respect the people in this town. And I think anybody that sits on the council or elected officials should have the same respect. Like I said, if you don't agree with the views, that's your privilege. We don't have to agree on everything to work for the best interests of our town. That's the number one goal we should have, is what's best for the town of Oak Island, not our personal agendas, not our personal views, but what we have to do to make our town the best it can be. And I would just like to say, if you disagree with me, that's fine. If you want to yell at me, that's fine. But the only thing I ask is give us a little respect, because I'm going to give you the same respect that you give me. and I'm gonna probably give you a little bit more. That's just the way I was brought up, to respect people and respect their views, whether I disagree or not. And I thank you for this time, Madam Mayor.
Well said, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, how do you follow that? Mayor's report, couple of quick things. On August 27th, our local Brunswick Habitat for Humanity cut the ribbon on their 50th home that they have constructed in Brunswick County. That was a real achievement, and we appreciate all of their efforts. On August 29th, Congressman Bill Schuster, the chair of the Chairman of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. I don't know if you saw the reports on the news, but he met in a roundtable with all the mayors, and we discussed our issues with mostly coastal issues, but I think the one thing that most of us agreed on was that if the federal government is going to come in here and place all these requirements on us and place a habitat designation when we already have a sea turtle habitat program, then they need to help us fund it. If you're going to require us to do it, you help pay for it. That's our federal taxes. So that was the major thing that was taken out of that. Don't know if any of you were down on the beach on August 30th for the Labor Day surf-off. This was the first time that the Oak Island Parks and Recreation Department held the surf-off. Last year was the 10th year, and they lost their sponsor. And so our Parks and Recreation Department, Rebecca Squires and all of her employees, and they had a ton of volunteers that came out and helped make that a major success. I must admit, I was a little bit hesitant about us taking something like that on with surfers and stuff, but they did a bang-up job, and it was the best one I've ever seen. And then we had our Arts and Crafts Festival on August 30th, and we had more vendors there than I've ever seen at any of our arts and crafts festivals. In fact, my necklace and my earrings I got there that day. So I'd like to express a voice of appreciation to John Michaud and his staff. I don't remember who emailed me about it, about the lights down here on the tennis courts and the basketball courts and softball and soccer fields burning later at night because somebody walked by them or something. They have installed timers that will allow the public to operate them from 5 p.m. until 11 p.m., and they will automatically shut off at 11 p.m. So we got that issue resolved. And also, I would like to thank John Michaud and his staff for the rapid response. One of my neighbors was concerned because people were running a stop sign on Holly and one of the side streets. And turned out, you look at it, and the stop sign was like 10 feet away from the road. So they moved that yesterday and got that resolved. It made me look like a champion to my neighbor. Are you going to discuss the new amended proposed floodplain maps in
I was
your
gonna let
manager's
Josh
report?
come up under my manager's report and just, but if you'd like to, you're more than
No,
welcome.
you
to.
do that in your manager's report. Yeah, okay. And that is my report. Next are my proclamations, and I guess Danny was not able to make it. We have a very important proclamation after our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. It's from the North Carolina Society of Daughters of the American Revolution, the Brunswick Town Chapter. Whereas it is the privilege and duty of the American people to commemorate the 227th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America with appropriate ceremonies and activities. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States designating September 7th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Did I say 7th? September the 17th through the 23rd is Constitution Week. Now therefore I, Betty W. Wallace, as Mayor of the Town of Oak Island, do hereby proclaim the week of 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week, and I urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all the rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves. And if you ever get a chance to see it, my husband and I, he was doing the TV flicking, and we ran across a movie that was produced years ago called 1776. And it ends up, it was about them framing the Constitution in Philadelphia and how hot it was. It turns out it's a musical, but that was the most informative and most educational and just happiest movie I'd ever seen about the Constitution. Then their second proclamation is recognition of outstanding service to the Oak Island community by Danny Mylod. He's the senior that I was referencing a while ago. Whereas the American Red Cross collects 5.6 million donations of blood annually from approximately 3.3 million donors, and whereas the efforts of a local student added to these numbers when he organized a blood drive as part of his senior project, and whereas Daniel Mylod should be recognized for his work on behalf of the American Red Cross and the Oak Island community, and whereas approximately 30 people responded and participated in the blood drive Danny organized August 1st at the Oak Island Community Center, and whereas Danny plans to pursue a career in the medical field, possibly nursing, and whereas it is appropriate to honor the efforts of one of our Oak Island teens who is already serving his community well, now therefore, I, Betty W. Wallace, Mayor of Oak Island, do hereby extend sincere appreciation from the town of Oak Island to Danny Mylod, with the hope that this will be one of many such services he provides for his community. Furthermore, I do hereby thank all those who already serve as blood donors and encourage all others who are able to consider doing so. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the town of Oak Island, this 9th day of September 2014. And as another note, one of our employees was there that day giving blood, and he had gone on to his gallon number 6 in his lifetime of giving blood. He had a little sticker. Now, we have a presentation by David Kelly.
Madam Mayor, we've taken that off, and Mr. Kelly's not available this evening, so we're
Okay,
going to do
that's
that at a
right, you
future
told me
date.
that, I forgot.
Okay.
Okay, adjustment approval of the agenda, and with council's indulgent here for just a moment, I would like to move new business number 3 to immediately after adjustment and approval of the agenda. I would also like to add, that's old business number 3. I would like to add new business number 3, and it is to engage an auditor to perform the required audit and financial statement preparation services. That is with Preston Douglas and Associates. And then also, I would like to take consent agenda item number 2 off of the consent agenda, so the town manager can discuss all the particulars of that. That's the approval of the grant contract with the North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Services for the Lockwood Valley Navigational Habitation Restoration Project. So that's my adjustments. Anybody else? Yes?
Mayor Wallace, I would
Please.
like to remove consent agenda item number 3 so we can have a discussion on the
Okay.
logistics of that also by the town manager.
And that's the exemptions from the Minnie Brooks Act.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other adjustments by council? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please.
Madam Mayor.
Please.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
We have a motion by
Second.
Councilor Painter, second by Councilor Kaiser. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Okay, next, let's discuss old business number 3. It's the discussion of the golf cart regulations, and we have Assistant Chief Jordan and Chief Ettinger here to discuss it with us. This is what our police chief and assistant police chief put together for council to look at. They have looked into this in every aspect, I think, possible on these golf cart regulations. And Councilor Weinkauf, I think you had a suggestion that you would like to make, please. And let's recognize you first.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I want to thank Major Jordan and Lieutenant Frank for their hard work on this book,
Chris worked on this too.
but I'd like to make a motion for us to look at adopting the Brunswick County ordinance and have staff work on this ordinance and bring it back to us on our October meeting for us to actually have some discussion to see what we may want to put into this ordinance and let it go from there.
Would you like to state your motion as bringing to the next meeting for
Bring to-
council review of the Brunswick County ordinance rather than making a motion that you actually adopt that one as, okay.
I second that.
Second by Councilor Scott. Any discussion by town council?
Well, I think we should have some discussion about what is actually in that ordinance.
Is that in your book, Brunswick Counties?
No, it is not, but I do have 2 copies right here.
Okay, why don't you go through some of the,
Yeah, some of the things, if you may, some of the things in the ordinance are, it's required a driver's license, that you must be 16 years of age. They're requiring a registration fee of $25. I think we can discuss that.
which means it is registered with the county and not with the state.
Right. Or it can register with the town of Oak Island.
Right.
They also require proof of insurance.
Good.
They must have rearview mirror, a reflective device on the back. I think a lot of towns are doing 3x3 little reflectors on the back, and just a flag on the back, slow moving, and the brakes are in good working order. And they cannot be modified to exceed 20 miles an hour. They must be on the streets with speed limits 35 miles an hour or less. And that's about it.
There's one difference I would suggest at the next meeting is modified not to exceed a speed of 25 miles an hour, because this will cover those of us who already have a streetcar.
That's why I want
Yeah.
us to have discussion to put anything in there that should be in there.
Okay, so we'll start with this one.
And one of the other, we'll probably have to make a distinction when we, in the ordinance, between the types of the low-speed vehicles, which are already street legal, and then the other types of golf carts, because, I mean, the way I'm looking at it, what the things that Jeff said, you know, there's some things on there that we would like to require, and then there's some things that would not be necessary, such as turn signals, or in my way of thinking, such as a turn signal when a person could use hand signals. Also, if headlights are not, and tail lights are not on the cart, then perhaps a restriction from just during daylight hours of operation. And in the Caswell Beach ordinance, they suggest operating between the time of 1/2 hour before sunset and 1/2 hour after sunset, and they say that you can only operate in the daylight hours, and if they operate 1/2 hour after sunset and up to 1/2 hour before sunrise, then they need to have headlights. But if not, then headlights would not be required on these non-street legal.
And I'll ask that, and I didn't mean to leave you out, Lieutenant Franks. I didn't know you worked that hard on this. You helped too. You did most of the work. Is that what it is? Next month, we can ask for clarification. If you have a titled, tagged, low-speed vehicle, these ordinances do not cover it at all. That is a vehicle. You could no more cover stuff on my Chevy than you could an LSV that is titled and tagged by the state. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I think something else we might want to consider and look at as a council is, because we know at a certain part of the year, and I live on Dolphin Drive turns back up to 45 miles an hour. Even when the speed limit's 35 miles an hour, I see people fly down through there all the time. I'd almost like to see Dolphin Drive stay 35 miles an hour and let that be a gateway for the golf carts to be able to get to the beach.
Council discussed that in, I think, 2011 or something. And at that time, Councilor Kaiser, I think I remember you driving, there was
Ask
some
me
reason
about
you
that. I
drove
didn't have
it there.
anything to do with that.
That was before his time.
Yeah.
I, as an owner of a low-speed vehicle and a proponent of going green as much as possible, I would love to see us keep all of Dolphin Drive 35 miles an hour year-round, because right now, in the winter, on my low-speed vehicle, anywhere on the beach or west of Middleton, I can't go there. I can't go to the Ocean Crest Pier in the winter. if I want to drive my low-speed vehicle.
And
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, there was several years ago, it was come back and they said that Dolphin Drive between Middleton and 40th Street would remain at 35 miles per hour for that purpose. Was
Right.
to allow those that could get down there to access the pier, the beach, and the restaurant that's down there also. So-
Oh, okay.
So East Dolphin is 35 during the wintertime, West Dolphin reverts back to 45.
Yeah, but even if you, that, you just reminded me of something. If you go down Dolphin to
Yes,
go to
ma'am.
the pier, we've got our one-way side streets. I'd like for us to look at that, because if you go one way onto Beach Drive, you can't,
Yes, ma'am.
because if you come back up that way, you're going against a one-way street.
Yes, ma'am.
one thing we neglected to point out was that what this would do is eliminate the ability of golf carts to be on the sidewalks. So we think that's important. It's become a huge safety issue. So this is going to put them on the non-state maintained roads and roads that are less than 35 miles per hour or less. And Major Jordan, did you want to make a comment?
That is correct. However, per your request, I talked to the sheriff's department today. They do allow golf carts on state-maintained roads that are 35 miles an hour or less. So we can do that too.
In the county ordinance is what you're talking about.
Through their county ordinance, yeah. There is state law that contradicts it. That's out of my league. I don't, if the town wants to do it, that's fine. But I did want to point out that if you have an ordinance, you can allow them to be on state-maintained roads at 35 miles an hour or less.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. In my own mind, and of course I only have one vote, but in my own mind, I think that at least Oak Island Drive should be off limits for these. This is just my thinking. I mean, these are the type of things that we're going to discuss and decide, but which we're not doing tonight, but we're just expressing a direction. Also, one other, the Caswell Beach ordinance has some good elements in it also, and one of those, it does say that drivers of carts shall stay to the far right of the traveled portion of the road and yield the right-of-way to overtaking motor vehicles. So that's it in a nutshell, I think.
May I ask, before the next meeting, Brian, if you don't mind working with Lieutenant Franks and Major Jordan? Right now, if I have my low-speed vehicle, which is tag and title on East Oak Island Drive in the 35-mile-an-hour section, there's a center left turn lane. If you pass me, you're breaking the law, because it's a no-passing zone. If we enact this local ordinance, and they are allowed on East Oak Island Drive, and someone goes around them, since we're requiring them to stay to the far right of the shoulder, that would not be passing a motor vehicle any more than it would be like they can pass them like they do the mopeds. Hopefully, can we check into that?
Are you talking about golf carts or low-speed vehicles?
Yeah, there's
Golf
a
carts.
difference. If it's a golf cart,
Right.
you can pass them. If it's a
Okay.
low-speed vehicle, you cannot pass them.
Okay, well,
If it has a tag, you cannot pass it.
right.
Correct, yes, sir. So it's going to be up to whoever's behind to decide whether it's a golf cart or low-speed vehicle, whether they can pass legally or not.
The whole thing becomes part of it being classified as a vehicle.
Right.
At that point. And once it's classified as a low-speed vehicle, has the tag on it, then it has the full use of the lane versus what the bicycle does or the moped, where they are to maintain to the right-hand side of the roadway so the motor vehicles can get around them. And they have to make the turn, they have to signal and move over to get to their turn. So if they were driving down Oak Island Drive, just had a town sticker on it, then yes, they would be able to.
So they can pass, okay.
Which, then again, you have close interaction between the vehicles is another safety issue.
But right now, you have the close interaction between the mopeds anyway. I mean, I'm like whoever posted or emailed or something. Yeah, when you pass one of those, you're like, okay, you don't have a driver's license and you might lay that thing down. So I'm gonna go real slow by you. Another specific that I'd like, in the Brunswick County ordinance and Southport's ordinance, and most of them I see, it delineates who will be doing the inspections and who will be issuing the stickers. I'd like advice from our police department on Southport only does it 2 days a week, so by the time we discuss this next month, advice.
Well, from our point of view, when I say our, I mean police departments, we're police officers, we're not mechanics. I could change the brakes in my truck, I've done the ball joints in my truck, I could probably redo the engine in my truck. However, I'm not a certified mechanic. I'm nowhere near a certified golf cart mechanic. So any alterations or anything that's been done to a golf cart, there is no way that I could say would be safe or if it's proper, okay? If they go out and they buy a couple bungee straps and screw it down and say it's a seat belt, well, it's obvious, yes, on that, but still, at that point, there are some issues. It should be done by some certified mechanic as far as the inspections go to certify that it is safe. And then you're gonna have a couple other issues of those, the other thing that you might wanna consider is gas and electric. Because there are gonna be different issues involving both of those. Is a gasoline engine safe and
It's
You-
gas,
use on-
aren't the gas are not allowed in the state of North Carolina, is my understanding.
No, sir, they're not.
Right.
But as it is right now, and this is one of the things that we did run across, there are some that are using gas golf carts as mobility devices, and that's what we've been trying to address. So that moves them from the sidewalks to the roadways. So that's another thing that you'll have to address too, is if you're gonna take on the ordinance, that you'll have to define whether or not you want these to be gas or electric powered.
I think the ordinances that we've looked at have designated electric.
And that's fine. If you choose to designate it as electric,
Yeah.
then that's fine. But that's just another issue that's there that you'll have to look at. But as far as inspections go, I would recommend that you send it to a certified mechanic that, because we don't even inspect our own patrol cars for license plate issues. Every year, our patrol cars have to be inspected by somebody that's certified. So it's our recommendation that you have that put over onto somebody else that is certified to do that type of thing.
So Brian, they could have a list of what is required under the ordinance, take it to a certified mechanic, just like you take your vehicle to be inspected, and have that certified mechanic sign off that it's got exactly what the ordinance requires.
And I strongly will encourage tonight, well, particularly next month, that be the golf cart owner's responsibility to get it done by a third party, because we don't have the technical expertise. When you start talking about these safety features, brakes, seat belts, unless we're gonna hire a staff and have them trained properly, that needs to be outsourced to a third party. And another issue, and I'm not trying to stir it up tonight, but it's an issue that you may want to be thinking over this coming month, is if it's not a street legal low-speed vehicle, the insurance that we may require, the town may require on these golf carts will not be ran through the DMV. So they could show insurance on a Monday and it be canceled that Wednesday, so that it makes people feel good, and hopefully people will maintain their insurance, but you may want to think of a secondary measure to ensure that insurance stays in place like the DMV does. I don't know how we do it, I'd have to think about it. Maybe periodic, more frequent representation by the golf cart owner once a month, once every 2 months, once a quarter, that their insurance is in good standing. But that requirement's a great idea, don't get me wrong. But as far as policing it, it's impossible to police because you don't have the third-party agency verifying.
We may have to have an insurance agent's advice and expertise, but currently, you can have, on any insurance that you have, additional loss pays.
Right.
And if they list the town of Oak Island as additional loss payee, then they would get notifications every time the insurance is renewed and if it's canceled.
If the policy's properly endorsed that way.
Right.
I mean, there's a way to do it, Madam Mayor. I'm just saying it's something that you may want to be thinking about over these next 30 days or so, because I think insurance is a pretty significant aspect of this.
Any of you out there that, there's about 3 or 4 people who said they've already acquired the insurance on it, help us out by next month on, now we'll talk to you next month. Yeah, you got yours. But help us out by next month on the specifics of how we assure that once you take out your insurance and get your permit, that you don't cancel it 3 days later.
And lastly, this, one of these issues, the more post-market requirements you have, post-market installations, we ran into this in that bald head case, Councilmember Kaiser. A lot of times, these seat belts and things like that will void the manufacturer's warranty. And that's something that the public would probably be more interested in than the town, but that's something that probably needs to be in the public forum for discussion. They may have changed. I know EasyGo, at one point took the position that if you had a post-market seatbelt apparatus type thing installed, it could violate the manufacturer's warranty on the cart itself. It's
Let me ask a question of council. Do you think that this would be something that we should have a workshop?
I was getting ready to suggest that, because I think there's more unanswered questions there are answered questions as we look into this.
What does Brunswick County's ordinance say about seat belts? I hadn't looked at the Brunswick County. Brian, you may know.
I don't know Brunswick County's off the top of my head. I can look at it if someone will hand it to me.
Well,
County does not require seatbelts.
Yeah.
say again, Greg.
Brunswick County does not require seatbelts.
Doesn't require seatbelts.
A lot of towns I researched didn't require them either.
Yeah, I can't imagine us
to my
enacting
point
an ordinance that didn't
Right.
require seatbelts.
The biggest thing they required was that the golf cart could not carry no more than it was designed to carry.
And
Well, there's
I-
a reason I was asking about seatbelt, because along with Brian, I was knee-deep in that situation over there with several deaths, and I don't know what to do about it.
I just can't imagine us allowing this without seatbelts on these vehicles that can go 25 miles an hour. I saw one going by me yesterday, had a little 3 or 4-year-old girl in that back-facing seat on her knees, looking forward to it, and no seatbelt, no nothing. She could have easily fallen out of that thing.
Having seen that firsthand, it's a horrible situation.
Yeah. And also, we've got to decide, once they get their inspection, we gotta order, are we gonna put stickers on the back of them, to show that show that they have been inspected by the town and they are allowed on the road?
This is what they have to carry with them.
But how are police gonna know
My
who's had their
recommendation-
inspection and who haven't?
My recommendation would, if it's feasible, would be they bring in some inspection certificate provided to the police department. We keep that on file and in turn issue them a decal based on that inspection.
Right.
But we're not inspecting anything. I mean, if you
No,
wanted
I'm
to say
talking
a
about if they bring it in, they've had it inspected, and we could have our town hall people issue the decals. And I think it was Brunswick County's, they have to be on the back, just as close to where a tag would be anyway, so if one of our officers was driving by, if they don't see a tag or a sticker on the back, then they know they can stop that one because they may not have their
Right.
sticker.
Why don't we just say our registration fee's gonna be the cost of the sticker?
And let's get advice from Brunswick County or the police department on ordering stickers specifically for that. This wouldn't have to be stickers, it could be just like a decal or something that's a different color every year. Yeah. Okay,
Before we move on.
Yes,
There's
please.
one more piece of this that we need to look at. We have a number of people that I know of in Oak Island, I'm sure there are more than I know of, who are disabled, and their golf cart is their only means of being able to get on the beach and enjoy the beach. And I don't know how this would look, and I don't know how's the best way to set it up. But I would like to see that ordinance state that a person with a bona fide disabled placard on their, and I say that because I saw one parked at Food Line just this week that had a handicap placard on the windshield, and it expired in 2005, and they were still using it. So that's a whole nother issue of enforcement, I understand. But I would like to see us in the ordinance to make a provision for that so that these people that don't have any other way to get on the beach can use their golf carts to get on the beach.
That's already been addressed and it's currently in place. Our ordinance actually permits a motorized wheelchair or an approved vehicle. And currently, and it has been for several years, we have, and the police department handles those permits. The people that are handicapped and do need assistance to get onto the beach are allowed to operate their golf carts to get onto the beach at this time. But there are restricted areas at which they can do it, and they have to stay within that area. And it's good for 1 year. So if you came in on January 1st, you'd be able to go out in those designated areas for 1 year. Currently, we are allowing golf carts and golf carts only to be operated on the beach with that permit.
With the disabled or handicapped placard, right?
Not just the placard, they actually have to come in and get the permit from us, which is just a formality. They bring their placard in, bring in the driver's license to show that it is them. We make a copy of it, issue the permit, they keep the permit and a handicap placard on it, and they roll with it.
And you know, the other thing I wanted to say is, it's almost amazing to me that we're spending this much time talking about this and dealing with this when we've got what do they call the bikes, mopeds, all over the island. They don't require any insurance. They don't have to have a driver's license. They don't require have a tag right now. And they'll run, some of them 40, 45 miles an hour, and we're not saying anything with that, and they can go across the bridge. So that doesn't really make sense to me.
Can we verify at the workshop that until you contact your state legislators, can we prohibit those?
Prohibit mopeds? No, because they are allowed by law, just as.
By state law.
Let me
State
take it
law.
one more point further, okay? And this will help us all understand where I'm going with this.
Point on, sir.
How many accidents have we had on Oak Island in the last 2 years that involved serious bodily injury from a golf cart accident? I searched the records and I only found one.
And that one was probably the same one that I'm thinking about, and that one was questionable.
My other question would be, how many have we had involving mopeds in the last 2 years that involve serious bodily injury and driving under the influence?
Driving under the influence, there are quite a few, because as we know, most of them drive the mopeds following a driving while impaired charge.
Now, we don't
I'm
want.
not categorizing all of them. I'm not doing that. I'm saying there are quite a few, though. There are some issues with that. However, while it's allowed by state law, and that's what this is all, what all prompted this whole conversation, was the state laws that regarded this. So.
But if it were a major problem, and I think it is borderline a major problem, then we have the ability to enact local ordinances to govern how and when and where they can be used, do we not?
You can roll on with that, sir, and do it just like you would anything else, if that's what you wish to do.
That's my point.
Perhaps, Brian, we could look into that by the time of the workshop. Can we prohibit the mopeds?
No, let's don't go there.
Okay.
I don't want to prohibit them. I mean, if just because a guy got caught driving drunk and he doesn't have a driver's license, I don't want to keep him from going to work.
It's
And that is-
16-year-olds whose mom and daddy are not paying for their insurance.
But I'm trying to make a point here.
I
I'm trying to
understand,
make
sir.
a point here. Yeah, I know there's an issue with people abusing the privilege of driving their handicapped golf carts on the sidewalks. I've seen it, you've seen it, we've all seen it. That's the issue that's the issue that brought all this up. But from there, we've expanded this all the way into, we're going to enact an ordinance to control who, when, what, and where we can drive golf carts.
And
I just wonder if we aren't overreacting to an issue here and ignoring another problem that may even be a bigger problem.
And that was the whole purpose of this, was to deal with one issue. And the issue was the interaction of golf carts with those that are using golf carts as mobility devices on the sidewalks, because of the number of people that are on the sidewalks and the interactions between them are becoming more frequent. And that was the reason for this whole ordeal.
I understand.
And we are not trying to get rid of golf carts entirely. If you have converted your golf cart or purchased a low-speed vehicle, as long as you follow the state law, there is no problem with that. We're not pushing for that. The issue of driving are operating the carts on the sidewalk where they're in more interaction with those pedestrians that the sidewalk was designed for, with those that are using it for what a sidewalk was designed to be used. That is what we attempted to address with this, and that was all that we were addressing. We were not trying to change state law to say, okay, everybody's got to do one thing or the other. We went back, reviewed what had been told to us originally, actually looked at what the law said, pulled it out, and said, this is what we're doing. And from there, it has now grown into this. So you could, theoretically, there are a multitude of things that you could do with this. You could go back and enact an ordinance that covered every single one of them. But then you have to think about this, because once you start opening up this door and prying it open, because these are some of the things that you're going to have to think about between now and your workshop. What's going to happen when somebody from Charlotte who has operated their golf cart in their private neighborhood under their permit now tries to bring it down here and drive it on the streets of Oak Island under the permit and the ordinance process? So you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have, which is what happened whenever the law was passed, saying everybody can make their own ordinance about it. They started bringing them down here, and that was one of the issues we had to deal with. You could even go so far as to leave anybody that is not handicapped, is not covered under this, that their vehicles have to be covered by state law. You could do that. You could go so far, I'm not going to say it's going to happen, nobody jump up, please. You could take, if it's not registered, get it off the roadway, period. End of conversation. You could go after that. You could go after the mopeds. You could go after the bicycles. You could go as far as you wanted to go with this. But it's not what we intended to do with this. Our intention was to make it safer for those that are on the sidewalk to actually be able to use the sidewalk as designed. Following the last council meeting, when this was first brought up, I was approached, said thank you. So I actually had to get out of the way of somebody that was driving it down the sidewalk, and they would not yield, okay? A couple days later, somebody came up and actually told me they had to jump out of the way of someone driving a golf cart on the sidewalk. Safety issues. No, we haven't had any major serious injuries with golf carts. But how many times have you heard in this county, when are they going to put up a stoplight? How many people have to die before a stoplight comes up? We don't want anybody to get hurt. It's a safety issue. That's our whole purpose behind this. That's all we're looking for.
And I have heard a lot of people speak about the handicap sticker on a golf cart was never meant to make it a substitute automobile. There's a lady that drives around my area, and she piles herself, the 2 kids, and the dog, and all the beach equipment to go to the beach because she's got a handicap sticker. This was meant to be a mobility assistance device and not your family vehicle.
And that's the other part of it too, is that when you look at it and you have people coming down and people that come down and use grandma's golf cart with her handicap sticker to get the whole family down there. Yeah. That's some of the issues that we're trying to address. And we are limited in what we can do whenever we deal with that, because if I walk up to someone that has a handicap placard on their car, or they're operating a motorized wheelchair, or they're operating this, all I can ask, are you handicapped, to be in compliance with the law and the operation of that? If they say yes, I'm done. I can't ask what it is, can't ask them to get out and walk around the car, see if they can run a mile. I can't do any of that. So that becomes an issue.
Okay, would council like to discuss some possible dates? Or anybody bring your calendars with you?
We have a motion on the floor, I think, don't you?
You do.
That's right, we have a motion to discuss it at our next council meeting. Would you like to amend your motion to schedule a workshop?
Yes, ma'am, I will. I'll amend my motion.
Pardon?
I would prefer, if we could, to discuss with Mr. Eads and with the police department, if we can get a date, some suggested dates for council to send out. Just make sure that they'll be ready to offer everything that you want.
Okay. So if he amends his motion to schedule a workshop,
Direct staff to schedule a workshop, yeah.
direct staff to schedule a workshop. Okay, and Danny, I think you seconded the motion?
If you say so, I did.
Counselor Scott did.
Counselor Scott, hey, that was an hour ago. Counselor Scott, would you amend your second, please? Sure. Okay. Any further discussion before we vote on the motion? All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. So all y'all that are here tonight worried about the golf carts, relax.
Mayor Wallace, I want to say something.
Please.
I like to get input, and it seems like every time we go changing the speed limit, I get phone calls, visits, emails, texts. And this is a big group here, and this isn't binding, but would y'all mind if we made Dolphin 35 miles an hour year round? You wouldn't mind it, or do you want to? So
Don't do it.
So raise your hands if you don't want us to do it. If you don't want it
West Dolphin.
35. Okay? The people that would not mind if we made it 35 year round, raise your hands.
Vast majority.
Well, that's a majority, and don't get mad at me if I go with the majority or not. I wanted to hear what y'all had to say on that.
Okay, all of y'all, telephone or email your council members, before the workshop about possibly making West Dolphin 35 year round, and let's not get into that tonight.
I just wanted to know.
We'll be here
I
for
wanted to
another
hear
2
from
hours.
it. That's interesting.
Good deal.
Well,
Good deal.
I mean, we got a crowd here, so we might as well. It's better than Facebook, I can tell you that.
Amen to that.
Oh, yes. And once again, Lieutenant Franks, wherever you went to, thank you for all of your work on this report. And Major Jordan, that's as comprehensive. And we've looked at this issue. Charlie, you're here since '05 or something. This is the most comprehensive report I've ever seen on the issue. It gave us pretty much everything we needed to know. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And y'all thank the major and the lieutenant for working on this so hard. They really. Okay, next, public comments. Let's see, yeah, we've been. You have 3 minutes to speak. When you come to the podium, please state your name and your address. We have first signed up, pardon? Yeah, and if you don't feel like you need to speak on the golf carts tonight, save it for the workshop. You can save us some time. Eric Thornton, you had signed up to speak on the golf carts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, for giving me the time to talk this today. I'm Eric Thornton. I'm on 134 Northeast 32nd Street. It seems like we're spending a lot of time and money on this golf cart issue. According to the minutes on February the 4th, 2011, we did have a discussion about the golf cart study that was done for $21,000 and $140. The golf cart study, we really didn't do anything with it. It's the way it is, and we're still fighting this battle. My wife is permanently disabled. It's going to cost $1,500 to $2,800 to get my cart street legal, when it was already approved by the police department for us to operate that with our handicap placard. So now it's been sitting in my backyard for 2 weeks now. $2,000 that I can't use on Oak Island Drive that was presently approved before August the 1st. So I'm a little upset about that. I'm not going to go into the general statutes that I have here, but there is one General Assembly of North Carolina Session 2009, Session Law 2009-493, the Senate Bill 203, regarding the handicap. It says a removable windshield placard placed in a motorized wheelchair or similar vehicle should be displayed clearly visible in location. Well, this is her mobility and wheelchair to get around on this island because she can't walk distances. She's unable to get out every day. She's struggling, and this is the only way that she can enjoy Oak Island, and that's why we moved here. Brunswick County, I'm all for the Brunswick County, and if there's ever a committee, I would like to be on that, part of that workshop. I think the decision should be somewhere where we can allow these handicapped people that have legitimate handicaps to operate these vehicles until this is decided on the secondary roads. And using Oak Island as a cross street just to get to the beach, I don't think that's hurting anything. But I would like for your recommendation to see if we can get that passed sometime soon. Thank you.
Mr. Eads, Esquire, would it be possible for the council to pass an ordinance this evening approving the use of handicapped golf carts for mobility devices except on the state street? Is that until we have the workshop?
It would probably be easier to suspend the enforcement of the ordinance that would prohibit that under those parameters, whatever parameters you want to say. In other words, motion to suspend, and I don't have the ordinance memorized, but whichever ordinance prohibits the use of the golf carts the way the council would like for them to be able to be used.
Here comes Counselor
I don't think they want them to be allowed on the sidewalks, but on the side streets and use crossover of,
As far as suspending an ordinance, what we have put out and what our whole intent, what we've based all this off of, is state law. There is no ordinance regarding the use of carts, low-speed vehicles, handicap mobility devices, or anything like that. This is all based upon state law. So I really don't believe that you can suspend state law.
You can't suspend state law. You'd have to pass like a stopgap ordinance then.
so we could, the council could pass an ordinance this evening stating that golf carts that are not street approved but do have, golf carts used as mobility assistance devices could be used?
If I may?
Please.
Do you want to end it? Well, go ahead.
If you were going to attempt to do that tonight, it would be a suggestion that you make the ordinance to say something along the lines that the use of electric, other powered mobility devices such as golf carts, electrically powered, can be used on the non-state maintained roadways of the town of Oak Island and not on the sidewalks, but can be used on these town-maintained to access the beach and other facilities.
Not above 35 miles an hour?
Not above 35 miles an hour.
Counselor Weinkauf, would you like to make a motion of what he just said?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Counselor Kaiser. You weren't listening.
Assistant Chief.
Hey, the lieutenant suggested it. We can take his. I like the way you stated it.
I was trying to cover it all.
Right.
To make sure that A, it's electric, so
Right.
Right.
that'll allow that. B, that it covers the side streets, keeps them off the sidewalk, which is our original purpose.
Right.
They are allowed to cross Oak Island Drive or state-maintained roads to access
Everybody?
the facilities of the town, to include the beaches.
Right.
There was one other thing I was.
Well, we were saying the criteria would be the same criteria to get the permit to access the beach for the handicap.
That was the other thing I wanted for that person.
Yes. Okay.
You can't have 14 people piled up onto it. So
Right.
if this gentleman here had his other power-driven mobility device driving the food line, and he had, not picking on you, sir. He had him, his wife, and 3 grandchildren on the cart, that's not being used as a mobility device. However, if he's on it, he's running down the food line, pick up a bread of milk, a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread because there's a thunderstorm coming, then that would be an approved use.
And I think you pretty much stated that. You said that with the handicap sticker and the mobility device. Yeah.
Well, that's been stated before, but we still have those issues, so.
Got a question, Brian.
Amend your motion, Counselor Weinkauf, to include that statement.
To include that statement, and I'd like to also,
Everybody, please, we can't hear.
I also like to put in there, in case the person who the handicap sticker is cannot operate that golf cart, that their
They have their
spouse
attendant.
Right,
If they need an
have an
attendant.
may
attendant.
be able to operate that golf cart.
Okay. Counselor Kaiser, do you amend
yeah,
your
yes,
second?
ma'am.
Madam Clerk, was that clear enough for you to include in the council actions?
I'll have to listen to the recording, yes,
Clear
ma'am.
as mud.
Clear as mud. Any further discussion from council about allowing that?
Just 1 second,
Please.
Madam Mayor. It's all right. I think we need to append a similar disclaimer to this. that
Okay.
Some of these other towns have, and we're gonna try to find a reference.
Go right here with Castle, here you go.
Castle
County has
Beach.
one.
Yep.
I don't have
There you go.
Castle Beach in here.
Purpose statement.
Here you go, Danny.
We have the section 6 from the county's disclaimer and assumption of risk.
Well, we also have this one, Castle Beach, that's what we just gave him. I think.
I would recommend we adopt the policy statement to go along with this ordinance from the Castle Beach,
Okay,
and just, we're gonna obviously have to amend it to make it Oak Island,
Right.
but that would be my recommendation from a legal perspective, is that we adopt that as well.
okay, so your motion, Councilor Weinkoff, will be amended to approve the language. Everyone, please, if you don't mind, let's keep the discussions down a little bit so we can hear each other. Amended to include the section 72.01 policy statement from the Town of Castle Beach ordinance. Amended to be adopted by the Town of Oak Island.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, did we clarify all that for you, Madam Clerk? You gonna have fun?
Lisa, my goal is to have the language of that policy statement in this ordinance. Is that clear to you in the motion? Okay.
And when we do have our workshop, any further ordinance we can either amend that ordinance or just replace it with any further ordinance. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please. Unanimous. Thank you, Town Council. Okay, now, back to public comments. I'm going to pull out first the people that have signed up for the golf cart discussion. David Coates, do you still need to speak? Okay. Larry Carricker, you still want to speak, or you want to wait till the workshop?
Well, I can do both.
Yeah. Kyle, do you have a handheld microphone we can bring out for Larry, please? You can go up to the podium right there, and Kyle will hand you one of our microphones.
He's gonna bring it out here, sir.
You can pull right up in front of the podium, so you can face the council.
Okay?
Yep. Mr. Carricker, turn around so you can speak to council.
Help him out there, Brian.
Yeah,
I'll hold that for you.
it's a cool chair. There you go. Yep, that works. That works.
Yes, I had my stroke a long time ago, and I've been disabled for a long time.
State your name and address for the
Larry
clerk.
Carricker, Carriker, 112 Northeast 47th. And I've been disabled for a long time, and lived here on Oak Island for 10 years, and I've always had a golf cart to run out on the beach with, or to run the food line, or run to the neighbor's house. And I just want to maintain that level of mobility so I can enjoy living here on the island, because it's a great place to live. But a lot of it depends on mobility and being able to go to the beach and run around a little bit and go out on the 4th of July to the town's cook-off and even have used the golf cart to go out on the beach when we had Rock Day.
Yeah.
You got free hot dogs for picking up, and I didn't pick up a single rock. I just drove the golf cart. So I think I'm pretty happy with the way things are going right now.
I'm not gonna lose the ability to transport.
Good deal. Okay. Next for the golf carts is Debbie Hunter. Do you still wish to speak this evening? Please.
I'm Debbie Hunter. I'm from 312 Mercer Street, and I am disabled and have been for a long time. And to find somebody to take me 2 blocks to get my medicine and back is a pain, much less go to the grocery store. And I appreciate y'all doing what you just did, because I can finally get out of my house.
Thank you. And Sandra Palmer, you wanted to talk about the golf carts and the skeeters.
Sir.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Sandra Palmer, 1621 East Pelican Drive. I appreciate what y'all did here tonight too, because the hardship and the cost that the handicapped people have to maintain every day is tremendous to some of them. And also, to me, that was like taken away from the military when you take away from the handicapped something that they truly depend on to get around. I had a golf cart, and I went and checked to find out how much it would be to make it street legal, and I was told anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000. Well, a lot of people who have handicaps cannot afford that extra cost. And to get to that beach, sometimes, especially before I had my knee surgery, I depended on it, or I couldn't have got down there, and it's only 2 blocks to the beach for me. And the other thing is the mosquitoes. For God's sakes, get that mosquito truck out. I will personally drive it, not cost a dime for me to drive it. And people who say they have asthma and things like that, well, I'm on 2 inhalers, and I'm on the albuterol machine too. I have to put a mask on at times, but I will go drive that truck to try to kill some of these mosquitoes, because it has been twice as bad, and every one of y'all know, this year, because of the rain we've had, it's been twice as bad as it has ever been. They came out 2 years ago from the town, stood in my backyard, and that guy was totally covered, and he discovered that there was a mosquito breeding ground back there. I've also talked to Mr. Brown out at the county. I have not heard back from nobody, and I have not, nor has my neighbor, seen a mosquito truck. So please get it out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Mr. Foster, if you don't mind, during your manager's report, discuss the mosquito truck and where it is going and when.
It goes all over.
Hey, Sandra, I saw a mosquito so big it was dragging my poodle away from the house the other day. So I agree.
Mine are perched up in the pine trees with the red-tailed hawk. Okay, I think that's everybody that signed up to talk about the handicapped golf carts, and I will make sure that when I get home, I contact Clarissa Cope and tell her that she can take Selena to the beach. Next, we have Kay Wolf. Yay, Kay, coming up to talk to us about the Ways for Kids.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I am Kay Wolf. I live at 8 Yopon Way, Oak Island, and I'm proud to live here. I'm not going to talk about golf carts, okay? What I want to talk about tonight is I had the opportunity a while back to remind this council that it takes a village to raise a child, and that we in Brunswick County and specifically Oak Island have the opportunity to live in paradise. We do. This is wonderful. I've teased some members of the town about that, but we spend a lot of time talking about the needs of this town, the city we live in, and the county. I want to talk tonight for a brief, I'll try and be real quick, about a fundraising activity that is totally benefits Waves for Kids. Now, Waves for Kids is not a magic acronym. Waves is because we're a coastal community. The number 4 is FOR, and KIDS stands for Kids in Disruptive Situations. Our largest fundraiser of the year is the last Saturday of this month. It's called An Evening of Chocolate Decadence. Now, what does Waves do? In this county, all of our kids are based here. We serve over 1,000 children and their families. These children are in foster care, Child Protective Services, or have court-appointed advocates, GALs. These kids come from very disruptive situations. I won't bore you with all the details. I will tell you that 75% of them have been sexually abused, 85% of them have been sexually and or physically abused, and almost 100% have been minimally emotionally abused. You know, we talk a lot about budget cuts and budgetary constraints. That's applicable for the state and the county also. And a lot of people think that if a child has a case with the state or the county, that all their financial needs are taken care of. Could not possibly be more wrong. So what Waves does is we meet the financial unmet needs of these children. An example would be we just spent $15,000 stuffing book bags. You know, the days of a book bag, including just a pencil and piece of paper, are long gone. Now they have headphones, flash drives, large display boards, all those things. So where do we get this money? We get this money, we're all volunteers. None of us are paid. We have no overhead at our offices. But we get this money from, this is our largest fundraiser. This year, we're very, very pleased to have Jackie Gore. If anybody's a shagger in this group or has ever heard of Ocean Drive, Jackie Gore is co-founder of the Embers. He wrote the song I Love Beach Music. He wrote many of the songs that the Beach Boys performed. And he also is nationally known. He performed in Las Vegas at the Sands. He even does our governor's inaugural. Now, we're getting national attention for this event this year. But you know what's disappointing? We're not getting local attention. We're not getting local attention. For several years now, I've tried to get this council, whom I love, and Madam Mayor, to participate in this event. I go around to all our local events. I see folks at the chili cook-off. I see you at the marathon, the triathlon, the Oak Island Lighthouse, because I usually have my husband running and all these things. At the craft fairs, the thing at the airport, Big Toy Day. I don't see any of you at Evening of Chocolate Decadence. None. Now, this year, I'm excited because it's not a glass ceiling, but we've broken through. We have broken through, and we have our first council attendee, the very first one. We have our first council member sponsor, the very first one, Councilman Scott. Thank you very, very much. So I am challenging the members of this community, the members of this council. You know, I've said before in front of this group, it takes a village to raise a child. And we're lucky to live in this village. But if we don't do this, and we don't change Brunswick County one child at a time, who will? Who will? Madam Mayor said earlier, this is our next generation. Who will affect our next generation if we don't do it? So I challenge you lovingly and affectionately. If you need tickets, they're $65 a piece for a great night of a great event. Please, thank you for your time. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Kay. I will let you. Kay, leave that over there on that table, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Your little brochure.
Madam Clerk has it also.
Cool. And I don't do chocolate. I'll have to come anyway. Okay, next, Bob Lloyd.
I'm Bob Lloyd from 4257 Anderson Drive Southeast. And I also love living here, and I love this little slice of paradise. But I look at this wonderful beach that we have here that all of us as taxpayers take care of. We take care of the beach renourishment, the patrols, the cleanups, the garbage pickup, and multiple things that we pay for. But our visitors, they don't have to pay for it. We need to find them a way to share in this expense, because our town needs revenue. It needs it bad. And I think that we can handle that most efficiently through the paid parking, and I know that a lot of people don't like that sound, but it's one of the best ways that beach communities takes and raises a revenue that I've studied. So I'd like for us just to keep this in mind, and I don't want to bore everybody with details, but I believe that this would be one of the best sources of revenues that we could take and help us with our problems with revenues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Next is Nikki Cutler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Nikki Cutler. I live at 2212 East Dolphin Drive. I've been there 3 years. Prior to that, I lived for 6 years on East Beach Drive. So I spent almost 10 years now up there in the tourist nest. And I wanted to talk about the surf off, first of all, but you've already covered that. That went very well, so I really do appreciate the town sharing in that. So that was very important to me, and I'm just glad that you guys were part of that. The trash carts is what I wanted to talk about. And we all know there's a problem. You just have to drive down East Beach Drive to see them out. They're out every single day, no matter what day it is, either the regular ones or the recycling. And I've come up with, the only thing I can think is going to work, we know that the weekly renters or the tourists are not going to handle it. That's been proven. It doesn't matter if you put magnets, signs, whatever you do. They're here for a week. They don't care. Just talking to the people that clean, you should see what they do to the properties. So they don't really care about putting the trash out on the right days. So we have to take responsibility away from them because they're not doing it. That's been proven. What I want to propose is that the responsibility to put the trash carts out on the correct day is going to be to fall upon the rental agencies. And the rental agencies are the ones controlling the houses that have a rental sign on the front, whatever the big major rental companies are. They need to be held responsible for getting those trash carts out the night before they're picked up, not the renters, okay? Because what the renters are doing is they're putting all of the trash cans out regardless of when they get picked up, if they do it at all. So it's just going to have to be put on the rental agencies. Having the renters be responsible for it's like having a 4-year-old child be responsible for a dog. They're not going to be able to. You have to make the parents do it. So now the problem with that is I did read in the paper about the time frame, and as a private person living up there, I can't get the trash can back by 7 o'clock because I don't get off shift till 9 o'clock on Sundays. So I was like, okay, that's different. Private property owners, they're going to be responsible for putting their own trash carts out, and the rental agencies should be responsible for putting them out for their houses. You cannot tell a private property owner like my neighbors who are there for a couple of days and then they leave, but they don't rent, that's just their private house. When they leave, they put their trash carts out. I don't see that you could take that right away from them because there's no other day they can and they have no one else to do it. When they come down here to their private house and leave, they should be able to put their cans out. Now, putting them back should be the responsibility of the trash company. They will should be held, and they do. They put them back in the corrals that you have out. So if you want to change where they have to put them to under the house or whatever, have the trash companies put them back. That's fine. You cannot expect a trash company to put them out. I've heard someone say, well, the trash company pulls them out in Charlotte and they're responsible for all of it. That's not going to work because they're not going to stop at every single house every single time they come when they're empty 90% of the time in the off season and check it. That would be like asking the mail lady to stop and check every single mailbox because we want to do away with the red flags. That's not going to work. So you can't have the trash companies responsible for pulling them out. So the compromise is make them responsible for putting them back wherever you want them. If you want them underneath the houses, where all the cars are, okay, whatever. But the rental companies are just going to have to be accountable for bringing them out. We've established and proven that the tourists are not going to do that. So that's just my suggestions on that. For living up there for 10 years, I've seen them. I've lived across and next to them all, and I can tell them I'll do it for them, and whatever, they just do whatever they want anyway. So that's just what I wanted to say about the trash cans. And there will be a few still on the streets that are the private property owners, but the rest of them will be put away at the right time. So you just have to make the rental companies responsible for it. That's what I wanted to tell you about that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. And I would like to ask once again, you don't realize it when you're sitting out there, but if you're discussing things amongst yourselves, it makes it hard for everyone else to hear the mics at the podium or our mics. So if you don't mind, just when we're talking or something, please refrain from the discussions in the audience. Let's see. Helen Cashwell.
Helen Cashwell, 3407 East Yacht. I want to talk about proposal of the placement of the sand or the Lockwood Folly rejuvenation. This proposal leaves many unanswered questions. How do you intend to make up for the shortfall of cash that will be in this project? Why the quick rush to judgment to serve such a small part of the beach? The endangered homes were built, but there was a large deposit of sand out in front, and they were built way out front of the rest of the homes, placing them at greater risk. Now, if you've been watching the beach during the moon getting to be full, you would see that over the past 5 weeks, and after the placing of sandbags in front of 4 of the houses, the ocean has bypassed the bags and the beach is collapsing behind them. Now, to come along and place loose sand on top of the extremely unstable sand that is there will only cause the new sand to erode further. Since we've already hired a firm to do an engineered beach, will that renourishment put more sand on top of this small place? To spend $3.5 million on 1.2 miles of the West End is not profitable in the scheme of things, when this town must take into consideration all the major expenditures we're faced with each budget. On page 18, or 2 of 7 in your packet, I will question the grantee's matching requirement, which has been filled in as cash needed, $1 million when the matching requirement is $100,000. Was that a mistake? I ask you to turn down this request and look at the bigger picture of the entire island's needs, not just at a few homeowners, and wait for our current engineered beach to take place.
Let's see. Next is Sarah Brainerd. Did I pronounce that right? You did great. Okay.
I'm Sarah Brainerd of 159 Northeast 12th Street, and I wanted to speak just briefly about the consideration of the amendment for the animal control ordinances. I know this got brought up a few months back in regards to a almost bite on the beach that turned out to create a new opportunity for those of us that do have pets. And my husband and I are fairly new residents here. We moved here 9 months ago because of the dog beach rules. We looked at every community on the North Carolina East Coast. We wanted to be at the beach, and our dogs are our kids, and we chose Oak Island because of the opportunity to have the dogs on the beach year round and off leash part of the year. And a part of this change in ordinance is expanding the opportunity to have them off-leash for a greater amount of time in the off-season, as well as increasing some ways to enforce the current ordinances with people who violate the rules. And I think both of those are wonderful changes. I think holding people accountable who don't follow the rules is what preserves those, liberties for the rest of us. And I think that's an important part of it. And I look forward to the opportunity. I work off the island. I drive up to Wilmington every day. So during the current times, I'm driving to work. So with this expansion, I'll be able to enjoy that with my pets. Thank you.
That's all that has signed up. Before I ask for anybody that hasn't signed up, we've been in session for an hour and 20 minutes. Let's take, okay, he's saying, yeah, let's take a quick break. You just want, one does anybody else other than,
Madam Mayor, I have 3 submitted comments.
okay, you go ahead. We'll do 5 more minutes before we take a quick break.
Kelly Germain, 6610 Kingsland Drive. First of all, I want to thank you again for the new polycart regulations. It's an incredible step forward. I totally agree with the idea that we need to educate the public, everyone, visitors, people who live here, on what we should be doing about the polycarts. And it's very important for our second home owners that rent or maybe don't rent to have options for complying. The majority of the homes on the beachfront area are, in fact, rentals. And I'm a little concerned about the length of the implementation being 6 months, which is April. My greatest fear is that it does not get implemented in April, which would be a huge step backwards. For this reason alone, I ask that we get progress reports about this, not only to town council, but also to the citizens, of how it is progressing and how we're going to be able to help people comply with this. Lastly, on a different subject, a lot of people were talking about golf carts or low-speed vehicles going to the beach. Well, those of you who have been to the West End know that, yes, we have some homes that are in dire need. Their sandbags have been moved from totally away. They're not 6 feet tall. They're probably not even 4 feet tall at this point. But it's not just those 4 homes. It's the entire West End. It's in trouble, the erosion. And back in 2001, when we did have the beach renourishment, none of that area got any of it. It stopped at the marina. And we all the people down there, paid for it. So let's go ahead and support any efforts to stop any erosion on all of our beaches, especially now the West End that's in harm. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Madam Clerk.
This comes from the New family, and they did not give me an address. I am writing in response to the CAMA permits that have been applied for to build single-family homes at the corner of 69th Street and East Beach. While they are prime oceanfront locations, it is incredibly sad to see another portion of the freshwater pond and all of its vast number of animal species encroached upon even further. We were on Oak Island during the most recent torrential rainfall and the hurricane, both of which sent the pond water levels overflowing into the streets, as well as underneath the bridge and into a portion of the dunes. Because we have small kiddos, we explored and found numerous types of frogs, turtles, snakes, minnows, crawfish, and even the alligators. Since the lots would not exist had Mother Nature not intervened years ago, it would be so wonderful to see the freshwater pond/marsh reclaim that portion of land. In addition, as I am sure you are aware, there are serious drainage issues at this particular corner, as all water flows from St. James by the Sea to the low-lying area. With the last substantial rainfall, the fire hydrant remained underwater for days. Adding more homes, more people, more trash, more strain on our water systems, our electrical supply, and our lack of drainage all are cause for concern as well. I know it is the prerogative of every landowner to do as they deem fit, provided the permits are issued, but it is so sad to see these enormous homes go up for the sake of nothing more than personal financial gain, with little regard for much else. We were access parents for the summer and were appalled at the way our beaches are left littered with trash and debris and folks pretty much not adhering to any beach rules. While I know my writing to you will probably have no bearing on the permits being issued or not, it is my right, as issued by your office, to respond with my comments. We love Oak Island and are proud to be modest homeowners as well. Thank you for all you do to protect our beautiful beach. This comes from Mark Palmatier, and I do not have an address on this one either. I wanted to make sure that since a letter was written by a neighbor who just purchased the property in December 2012, which was after these lots were subdivided, that I had a chance to speak. The new family was well aware that the property diagonally in front and to the right of their property were buildable properties. In fact, these properties were for sale when the new family put their current home under contract, knowing that these lots could be built on, and were for sale before the new family closed on their current property. I have taken every step to not disrupt the ecosystem in the area around these properties. I have moved the homes toward the ocean to get further away from the wetland area on the lots. I have CAMA major permits that allow me to build over the wetlands, but have chosen not to disrupt Mother Nature by moving the homes forward. Also, I have chosen a local builder who is familiar with building on the oceanfront and wetland areas to ensure that local CAMA and Army Corps rules are followed and not violated. The builder is placing silk fencing around the job site and wetland area, so there will not be any unnecessary runoff into the wetlands. The comment about building enormous homes and only building for personal gain is insulting, to say the least. I am building much smaller homes than what is allowed by the new Town of Oak Island ordinance. These homes are only 3,000 square feet, which is 2,000 square feet less than the 5,000 square feet allowed for a single-family home on Oak Island. My family vacations here for months at a time during the fall and needs these amount of bedrooms to house them. My property rights allow me to build in the area I'm choosing to build in. I did a lot of due diligence prior to purchasing these properties, and as part of my due diligence, I made sure the size of the home I could build and the placement of where I could build these homes. To follow all the rules, to research what is needed to follow all of these rules, to pay money doing all of the necessary due diligence to perform the research, and to then not be able to build within those rules is against our property rights as landowners in this country. The new family really seemed concerned with another property owner building and taking away views from their second-row property, as well as the rights of his own. This is the case with any second-row property that has oceanfront property in front of it. The main reason that oceanfront property costs more than second-row properties is that your views will not be obstructed. The new family knew that when they were buying and chose to be there. The lots that I purchased could have been purchased by the new family to preserve their view. I am not trying to hinder any of my neighbors or disrupt the nature around my properties. Instead, I have taken every effort to not disrupt any wetlands by not extending the bridge over the wetlands, nor build my home over any wetlands, which permit me to do, and to move my homes forward away from the wetlands and make sure the wetlands are not disturbed. To say that I'm doing anything but staying well within the rules of building a home in the oceanfront of Oak Island would be an untruth. I was born and raised in Brunswick County and have been coming to Oak Island for over 40 years. And the third one comes from Milligan House Movers from Tabor City. Oak Island Town Council, I would like to request a change if possible in the house moving ordinance from Wednesday only to a 3-day-a-week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday move during the off-season, starting September through April. Thank you in advance for your consideration.
Okay. Now we have completed the public comment section, and Madam Clerk, if you could forward that to the town manager. And we will take a Now we have a green light. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Chair will entertain a motion to
Madam Mayor.
approve the consent agenda as amended, please. Yes.
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Motion by Counselor Painter. Second by Counselor Kaiser. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Okay, next is items removed from the consent agenda. Item number 2 was the approval of the grant contract with Diener on the Lockwood Folly and Habitat Restoration Project. Mr. Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm very pleased to discuss this project. Quite frankly, I was kind of surprised there was any opposition at all to this. I was very pleased that we were considered in getting one of 2 grants for this beach nourishment project. The other, as I understand it, is Topsail Beach, and then we've got this particular one for $1.1 million to possibly up to $1.7 million should they come up with the funding in October, which would pay for roughly half the cost of the project. I'm not going to get into a lot of the details about the project itself, other than just for those that would like to know. We're basically dredging sand from the eastern channel, which is from Blue Water Point Marina out to the Lockwood Folly Inlet, roughly. And that's going to produce around 200,000 cubic yards of sand, or I should say of spoil material, and 180,000 cubic yards of that is going to be beach grade sand that'll go on approximately 1 mile of beach out on the west end. And I think, as we all know, and the ones that have been to the west end, unfortunately, we had accelerated erosion during the last winter, from February through March, even into April and May. And this was probably some of the fastest erosion I think I've seen in quite some time. What's ended up happening is we have about a half dozen homes down there currently that are in danger of either falling in or actually ending up out on the beach if we don't do something with it. So we're now in the process of trying to get permits, environmental permits, through around 18 different regulatory agencies, environmental agencies, in order to get this done. Time frame is we're hoping that we can get the permits approved probably by December. Hopefully we can get dredging company in here. Typically they like a year in advance, but we've had contact from 2 or 3 companies, some that got other projects going on, that would be available to do that. The one last piece that we need is working with Mr. Eads on getting right to enter, I guess, releases done, easements to do that. So those are the 3 pieces that we're currently working on. It's vital that we get this sand. It's vital that we get it down there. And I developed a list of reasons that we really need to do this, and I would encourage this board to go ahead and approve this contract this evening. I'm going to pass around, I guess, a picture's worth 1,000 words. This is something that Brian and I experienced at North Topsail Beach. Brian more than myself. And I'll let you pass those down real quick and I'll discuss them. What you see here in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, is a house. This is one of 6 houses that's right at the entrance, or at the inlet at New River Inlet, and at the shoreline there. These 6 houses, ones looking just like this, sat on the beach for almost 3 full years, or right at 3 years. And this is what everybody looked at for that whole period of time, with these houses sitting out on the beach like this. And it was a very sobering experience to see this. I was telling someone, I guess just yesterday, I had the opportunity to go to Switzerland to visit my sister-in-law, who has, or my wife, to visit with them there in Montreux. So after a long plane flight, I kind of slept in late, and I pull up the paper the next morning with a cup of coffee to read it, and guess what I see? I see an AP picture of 6 houses sitting out on the beach at North Topsail Beach, and it was all over AP and the world. And this is what they asked. This is the view of North Topsail Beach. So I think that this is imperative that we do this, because, and I have one of the points here that covers that, but it's imperative that we keep this situation from happening. Bear with me just 1 minute. Let me see if I can find my notes. Let's see. Let's see here. Here we go. I've got some bullet points on a number, probably about 20 different bullet points on why this project needs to proceed. Number 1 is to save millions of dollars worth of real estate, accompanying ad valorem taxes, accommodation taxes, and sales taxes. And that's just not 1 year. Once these houses are gone, that's year in and year out. And that's money that we're going to have to come up with somewhere to make up for those lost structures. And it's not going to be easy to do that. Number 2, provide protection for the other existing structures that may be in the same condition in the near term. This isn't isolated to those 6 houses. If this erosion continues, you're going to have several blocks of houses in the end that are going to be in the same danger as these 4, 5, 6 houses that we currently have. And by the way, they all pay ad valorem taxes. They all produce accommodations tax that we're using. Saving the cost of the cleanup that should these houses fall into the ocean. The 6 houses in question, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, at North Topsail, ended up costing the town $1.6 million settlement.
That was the town share.
That was just the town share, 1.6 million. Now, that's the cost of what it would be for this town not to continue with this project today. And it's an expensive proposition. It kept those things out there for 3 years, and it was a very gut-wrenching, I guess you might say, experience.
Yeah, this picture, at high tide, this was like an island at North Topsail.
Yeah, water was all up. In other words, the water was all around these structures. We'll be lucky if they collapse. That would be the lucky way out. But if they stay out there, condemnation is a very difficult process, isn't it, Brian? And if they get stuck on the beach, we could be stuck out there with these houses for that number of years just through courts and litigation involved with it.
And I just add to this, North Topsail had some complications to it, and that's all public record, what the allegations were. But Nags Head's going through similar problems too. What happens is once they get inundated with water and then, mold and all these issues, do you permit it? Do you not permit it? Where's the mean high water mark? And it's just a very litigious process. Yeah. So absent, anyway, North Topsail Beach is not the only town that's been dealing with this. Nags Head is dealing with this right now as we speak.
Dangerous debris left in the surf. Even after these structures were taken out and moved away and completely done away with, debris is still washing up from under the sand where kids are going out and playing in the surf. They have concrete, they have rebar, they have all kinds of old sand fence, wire, and it keeps coming up. It's like our rocks here, except that's construction debris that keeps coming up. Bad press and the damage to home prices town-wide for a town's negligence in allowing this to happen. It does not just affect those few houses down there. At North Topsail, you could see a precipitous drop in value after this got publicized the way it was. And it wasn't just oceanfront, it was the whole town. Because one of the things, if you buy a house, you want to make sure that there's some protection there, regardless of where you are. And you wouldn't move to a beach where you don't have a beach. And that's basically what they were looking at. Lost tourism and accommodation tax dollars. And nobody wants to spend their full week of vacation and $4,000 to go to a beach where you got to put a ladder down the escarpment in order to get to the beach. And when you get there, you got water to put your beach towel in. And it's not a good situation. Continually clogged and dangerous channel on the eastern channel. Every day I see boats hitting sandbars with kids. I don't know if you remember the incident most recently at Blue Water Point where they hit the pole. Well, these boats are going through there at a high rate of speed and they're hitting these sandbars and the same thing's happening. And it's a very dangerous situation there.
I'd like to point out one of the occupants of that boat died from hitting that post.
That's right, they did. Decreased shellfish areas with contaminated crustacean. In other words, oysters and clams with no effect, no water to get in. We have, the town currently has no other active beach nourishment projects. So we're not obligated in any way for any other projects at this point. Now, Ms. Painter here and others are working to try to get a GRE back off the ground, or GRR back off the ground. But the last one of these was funded for new sand, and a new project was 20-something years ago. So that I don't know, we're hoping it'll come back, but there's no guarantee. So the money can't be spent on any other projects. There's not any. Should the town identify new projects, the closest known recommended sand source offshore is Frying Pan Shoals. And that's where the recommended sand would come from for nourishment for the rest of the beach. That's a long way, ladies and gentlemen, from Frying Pan Shoals to Oak Island. Now, there may be some other bar sites out there. They're yet to be found, but there may be some out there that we can use. So really, this is the only source of sand that we currently have. And I close by saying this on this project, and I think it's germane, but the primary purpose of local government is for the public safety and property protection. And this project falls squarely in the latter of those two. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And if I may, I'd like to also point out that if the council approves the acceptance of this grant, it does not obligate the council to carrying forward with this project. This is just, if we accept the grant portion, then when we do enter into the project.
Let me address that just for a minute.
Explain that grant, please.
Ms. Sword, you got a minute? We can come up to the podium real quick. I asked Ms. Sword to calculate the amount of money that we have. We have in excess of the match necessary to match what the state's putting in. We do have a request into the county, but regardless of what we have with the county, we would have the funds to be able to do it. This grant, it's not a grant per se, it's funding for the project. And the way they work it is that when you spend money, you send that in to the Division of Water Resources, and then they reimburse you half of that cost with those funds going back in to our fund. So we wouldn't be out, is that not correct?
Right, the way I
So
read
if
it.
we don't spend the money, then we're not obligated for the money. So, but anyway, I think Ms. Word went ahead and calculated 2.1 million that we currently have hard cash that would more than meet those obligations.
That is correct. We have in excess of that in fund balance, but we had available cash of over 2.1 million. Yes,
Right.
sir.
And that's over and above the obligations already placed on our general fund and.
That was simply out of the accommodations tax and beach tax fund.
Okay.
As far as the hurricane, came up as far as concern about money that we have for hurricane reserves. I think you said that we have currently, as of the last fiscal year in the audit, around 4 million roughly according to the audit.
Right, the last audit we had calculated, and of course now it's time that we're looking at those fund balances for the following year as well. But it looks like, I did some preliminary calculations today as well, and it looks like we'll be increasing our fund balance again. But we had about $4 million plus, so it was about 40% of our budgeted monies were available fund balance. I think we had reported on that in the audit results as well.
Now, as far as timeline is concerned, our engineer tells us that they're working as hard as they can to try to get this project done, this dredging during this winter. Our dredging window, as you know, runs from November 1st through March 30th. And that's for the turtles and the birds and all these little creepy things out there. So we can't do anything before or after. Now, we could get an extension, but it's not, you'd have to go through an extensive process to get an extension. So the engineer said in order to get the permit ahead of time for that dredging window, he's got about a 50-50 chance of getting that done so we can get it done this year. And we're pushing it just as hard as we can push it. So hopefully we'll get that. Now, if we don't get the permit this year and things slow down or get clogged up, then that'll go over into the next dredging season. And then at that point, that would be another 1.1 roughly $1 million that we would have in the till. But here again, we want to get it done this year because of the obvious precarious situation that we have. So that's where we're at. So I hope I hit all the points that everybody was asking about.
Did you bring that copy of that letter that we got from DWR that I gave to you last night?
I think it's in your packet.
Basically, they are stating that they're committing to a minimum of $1.1 million, and they consider this exactly the type of project that they wanted to fund from this. Thomas Reeder from Diener basically says, as additional revenue accumulates in the fund, the department will revisit your request and make an additional award if and when resources are available. So they haven't said they're just going to give us 1.1. They're hoping that they can gather the additional $600,000 that was requested.
And he indicated the way that the revenues were coming in, he felt like that they would probably be able to do that. but he couldn't guarantee it.
And folks, I've been to all these council meetings, every single one since December 2003. And I remember back that far, discussing the Corps' testing on the Eastern Channel, because we saw back then a problem was arising. I've been trying to go and look back through the council discussions, and I do remember back in 08, 09, council discussed this and approved, this project, and that was when the Corps had it. Corps got it to the permitting stage, federal funding dried up, it went back on the shelf again. So this has been a need. That Eastern Channel dredging has been a need for as long as I've been coming to town council meetings, since December 2003. And since they have discovered beach quality sand out there, which we did not expect, that's where I still think the Corps took our sand with their sidewinder and put it up there. Why not take advantage of the fact that we have that beach quality sand there? In an engineered beach project, you have to have shown that it is beach quality sand.
Can I say one more thing too? The importance of the dredging is that the funds that are helping pay for this dredging come from boat registration fees and a small portion of the gas tax. And this money is designated not for beach nourishment, it's designated for dredging. So this sand is a byproduct of the dredging of use of these funds, and that's a restriction on the use of these funds. It has to be used for dredging. So that's where we're at with that.
Madam Mayor, this is almost a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. If we don't maintain our beaches, we won't have any tourists. And I think the smart way to do beach renourishment is do it in stages, and this would be stage one. And it's gonna renourish over a mile of beach. So in light of all of that and what you've said, Mr. Foster, I want to make a motion. And I move that we approve the grant contract with North Carolina Department of Environmental and Natural Resources for $1.1 million grant for the Lockwood Folly Navigational and Habitat Restoration Project Phase 1 is presented in our packet.
Second.
Second by
Madam Mayor,
Councilman.
there's one change, and I hate to interrupt, but on page 18, and Councilor Painter found this, and I checked with Darren England at Division of Water Resources on page, I think it's 18. It's where you call it, Carol. I think it's 18.
Right, it is on page 18.
18. That figure is supposed to be 1.1 million for our match, and it's 1 million. It was a typo. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to bring that up with that one change.
And I'd like to state something on public record during a town council meeting discussing this subject. The Eastern Channel, as the manager said, runs from Blue Water Point all the way down to Lockwood Folly. That is the waterway side of all those homes up there that run from Blue Water Point all the way down to Lockwood Folly. And that includes the waterway side of the homes on Kings Lynn, where our manager's house is located. Now, dredging the Eastern Channel, what benefit does that give to the homes that are on the waterway side from Blue Water Point to Lockwood Folly River? They get fresher shellfish harvesting. I will not tolerate accusations, I just won't do it, of conflict of interest just because the manager's house happens to be on a project that's been under discussion for the past 12 years. Mr. Eads, does Mr. Foster does not have a vote on this issue. He can bring suggestions and information to council. The council members have a vote. Does he have anywhere close to any conflict of interest on this?
Well, you just say he's not voting, so there's nothing for him to have a conflict of interest.
Okay.
That's ludicrous anyhow.
I just had to get that out. Any further council discussion about the motion, please?
I just got one question. How much is it that we're asking, that the county said they may put in?
They haven't said.
They said that,
rough
Pat
figure,
Sykes
but-
made a motion to fund at a minimum of $125,000. And then they said, let's take that motion away and let's wait until we see our fund balances that are brought back to us from June 2014.
So it could be more or less.
A minimum of 125.
And may I say something, Madam Mayor?
Please.
And trust me, I love parks. But if you seen the paper, how much tourism money came into the county, and this is tourism coming to our beach that we're getting ready to lose. And I can imagine all the people flooding to the parks to go enjoy the parks. But I think our beaches override anything like that. And I think the number one obligation that should come is our beaches. For every town in this county, for the tourism dollars that's coming to the county. And I just like to go on record saying I want our county commissioners to really consider giving Oak Island this money so we can proceed with this.
And Marty Cook has a home down there. He's one of our county commissioners, and he recused himself from any discussion, any vote on this when the county commissioners were considering it, because he may benefit from it. So that he disclosed that he would not be participating at all in this discussion from the county commissioners.
Just one more point.
Please.
And we did request 500,000 from the county.
And they may give us more from the 125, but they may have to stick with that. We'll know. They asked the manager, I was there with them at that meeting, to come back after they had gotten their funds.
I believe
and
they
after
said at
we-
the end of September they'd be able to tell us.
Right.
One more little thing.
Please.
Bonnie, tell me one more time now, so far as unencumbered cash in the accommodations fund and the general fund as of today, how much is that again?
Now, as of today,
Or, I mean, just,
Okay, as of
within
June
$25,000, whatever.
as of June 30th, we
Okay.
had roughly $4 million plus in the general fund in cash. At that time, we had about $1.5 million in cash in the accommodations tax fund. Since that time, we've collected significant accommodations tax and beach tax revenues, so we're up to about $2.1 million now in those funds. The general fund is at a lower point now than it was at June 30th, simply just because of the timing of revenues. But the numbers will increase as they roll higher because we're getting ready to bill our taxes within the next 2 weeks. So the way the money rolls, we'll come to a point where we're back higher again at the end. In cash in the general fund, there's $5 million or more, but the actual fund balances they have to be estimated, and I can't give you an exact figure on the general fund right now off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, but that's unencumbered cash. In other words, it doesn't count money loaned to the wastewater system or this, that, and the other.
No, sir, that does not count that. Money loaned to the wastewater system would be in addition to all
Okay.
that. So the fund balances for accommodation tax and beach tax are up around $5 million, whereas the available cash is that 2.1.
Okay.
And that reimbursement would be roughly around that 300.
It is, and we calculated that the accommodations tax revenues are roughly $1.1 million a year. The repayment from the wastewater fund back to those funds is $350,000 per year, plus an interest rate that is a variable rate based on the rate of return that we get on our portfolio each year. But because we do have some expenditures planned out of the accommodations tax and beach tax, I have given Mr. Foster the $1.1 million number so that we could be sure to preserve whatever funds we would need for those things that we'd already planned for.
That was my only concern. I just wanted to make sure that, in case something happened, we would be able to take care of it, and it seems like we will, so thank you.
As for available cash overall, the town's resources, we do a cash report semi-annually. We do one in July and we do one in January. As of the July report, the town had roughly $25 million in cash among all its funds at that time.
One more point of clarification, please. The $2.1 million that you mentioned in the accommodations tax fund, is that the amount that includes both that must go toward beach nourishment and
tourism activities, yes, ma'am.
And tourism activities, okay.
Because from an auditor definition, the tourism activities could include sand.
Could include sand.
The sand part is exclusive only to sand, but the tourism can include sand as well.
Okay, thank you.
Could we have those figures included every month in our monthly agendas so we
Certainly.
know where we stand, or at least I would know where we stand?
Certainly. We had some discussion before. We used to include a line item detail, and that was more information than the council cared to see at that point. And we were hoping that our software would be able to allow us to print a departmental level to a point where we could get it. We've still not been able to make that, but I can certainly prepare one that can go in your packet each
That'd be
month.
great.
And with council's indulgence, we had the public comment portion that you're wasting your money putting up sand that's just going to be washed away. This is an engineered beach project. before it will be permitted, the engineers have to show that this project, where they place the sand, will probably most likely last a minimum of 40 to 50 years. And we'll have to do like regular maintenance every 5, 6, 7 years. But all you got to do is look at Carolina Beach. Years ago, all the coastal communities wanted an alternate vegetation line, a variance from, I think it was CRC then. The only two communities that were allowed the variance was Carolina Beach and Nags Head. They were the only two that had regular engineered beach projects. Oak Island didn't have one, so our 300, 400, 500 properties still are unbuildable because the prior alternate vegetation line is in the middle of the road. After we do this, then we may be able to, as we do it in phases, petition again for that alternate vegetation line. It's,
Well, that has to be.
it's just a win-win-win-win-win.
Madam Mayor, call the question.
Call for the question. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. And thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Foster. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Josh, for all of y'all's work on this particular issue. Okay, next is Mr. Kaiser, or Councilor Kaiser. You wanted to discuss consent item agenda number 3.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Mr. Foster just to explain that to us and to the audience.
Okay, this came up, this is, for the audience's sake, this is something that I'm asking for, and we're encouraged. I think the finance director would probably, she's the one that brought this up originally, and appreciate it, but it's true. This is something that we would like to be able to do on a staff level, if we could, and this is what we're asking for is an exemption from what's known as the Mini Brooks Act. And what this is it seems counterintuitive, but this act basically says that for engineers, architects, construction managers that are governed by GS 143-64.1, that they should be considered not based on price or what it's going to cost them or not on unit cost, but rather on qualifications. So, in other words, you don't use price to select your service, which is totally different from equipment and construction and everything else. So, the General Assembly passed this, and they said that anything over $50,000, you would have to send out an RFQ, not an RFP, and use this type of method in order to select architectural and engineering services.
RFQ is request
for qualifications. You're welcome. So we're trying to come in compliance without completely shutting down for every time that Mr. Kelly, which precipitated this whole request to start off with, in conjunction with our golf course project for our wastewater and other sewer related things, we need the latitude of not being able to have to wait every 30 days before this board so they can exempt a project. Now, they can't give blanket exemptions, but the way they suggested the school of government, which you'll find in your packet, is to authorize maybe one of the town staff to be able to determine when we need to exercise this as a practice at any particular project. And we're saying that the act itself says $50,000, so that's what we'd like to put it at to be able for staff to be able to do that. We're trying to come in compliance with the law. It's what we're trying to do in the easiest fashion that we possibly can. I hope I explained that okay.
Yes, sir.
You did.
Well, just one question. So for contracts or for services, $50,000 or less than $50,000, that you want an exemption, or that you foresee an exemption. What are the and give some examples or an example. I know in our packet it mentioned that when time was of the essence.
This is the one that David had, and I can't remember which specific
I can speak to this, actually. The one that this came under discussion for is actually associated with the wastewater project with the golf course reuse line.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Because there have been a number of changes to the design of the reuse spraying on the golf course, based on requests from folks at the golf course, from the town of Castle Beach individuals. There's had to be engineering changes. And each time that we need to have an engineer provide us that information, we are supposed to go through this request for qualifications process, this Mini Brooks Act process, in order to do that. There are times when an engineer may have special knowledge of the situation that makes them the better choice for this, i.e. the person who has helped design this part of it or that part of it, or is most familiar with that type of function, is sometimes the better choice. Rather than having to do a full RFQ process, you may realize that that's the one you need to work with in that case. There may be other times where we would rather have an engineer not only give us their qualifications, but also tell us how much they intend to charge us, because we'd like to know that from a financial perspective as well. And that would actually not be meeting the Mini Brooks Act if we ask them to give us their cost at the same time as giving us their qualifications. So this wouldn't be anything over the $50,000 limit that the statute allows. It simply would allow delegation to the manager of the choice of whether to exempt it or not to exempt it. And there may be times when we would continue on and use the Mini Brooks Act procedures to get the qualifications examined. But it would just allow the possibility of that exemption if he saw fit for that particular situation. And he already has contracting authority up to $30,000, and this is where it kind of came in and got gray, was that the town council has delegated to him the authority to sign contracts for the town that are under $30,000, but yet if we were doing engineering services for that under $30,000, we'd still have to follow the Mini Brooks Act without getting that delegation to apply to this as well.
And there's two other points with this too. As far as price under the Mini Brooks, you're saying, well, how do you control costs? I mean, that was one I would think about. So what you do is you go ahead and you send out your request for qualifications. You bring those in if you like the guy or like the company. You talk to them and you go over the whole project with them. They'll give you a price at that point. And if you feel like that price, that's where you start negotiating on price. And if you can't come to a mutual agreement on that price, a lower price or whatever, then you bring the next guy in and you do the same thing with them, and that's how you regulate to some degree cost. So that's
one of the challenges that the town also had that I might note is that the town used to have an engineer on staff. We no longer have an engineer on staff, so anything that we need a PE or certified engineer to provide has to be done on a contractual basis, whether that's 1 hour of service or 25. So that's something else to consider with regard to this.
And one last point too, just for the audience's sake, the $30,000 you allowed me to do for the signing for contracts. The reason for that, if you remember, just refresh your memory on it, that was because the school government said that any transaction, monetary transaction, reflects a contract. And all contracts have to be approved by the board. Well, when I've got Chris out here buying pencils and pens, and he's going out and buying toilet bowl brushes and everything else, you know, we can't keep coming back to the board. So a fairly standard amount was $30,000, and that's how we got off into being that. Either one of these, we cannot exceed the budget that you've adopted that we operate under. So I hope that kind of explains what we're doing here.
I'm going to make a motion.
Would you, who wants to make a motion? Danny, make a
Well,
motion.
let me flip to it and see
Make
here.
a motion, sorry.
Wait,
Mayor Wallace, was you gonna say something, Carol?
No, go ahead.
I make a motion to authorize the manager to grant exemptions from the Mini Brooks Act for procurement of professional services for amounts less than $50,000.
Second.
Second by Counselor Medlin. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is committee appointments. First is we have an application from Elizabeth Miller for a position on the Beach Preservation Trust Fund Advisory Board for a term ending in September 2017.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
I did want to just note that Ms. Roseanne Fortner did send me an email saying that the Beach Preservation Society Trust Fund Advisory Board endorses Ms. Miller's application.
Thank you. All those in favor of appointing Ms. Miller, please. And it is unanimous. Next, we have, excuse me, for the Capital Improvement Committee, Richard Kipke, I hope I pronounced that right, for a term ending in June 2017. All those in favor of appointing Mr. Kipke, please. And it is unanimous on that. And thank you once again for those people that are applying to serve on these committees. Next, we have committee reports. I thought I saw Roseanne earlier, did I not?
No, she's not here, but
Okay. Is there any member of any committee that would like to make a report, please? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry,
please.
Mr. Cox did need to make a report from the beach ambassadors. Would that be an appropriate time for him to?
Oh, sure, please. Mr. Cox, just assume every month if you want to do an update that it can come during committee reports. That way.
Good evening, Town Council. Thank you for the time. Due to the length of this meeting, I will make this a condensed version. Lisa, the town clerk, does have a complete copy of this report, but I'm going to condense it for you so we can just give you the highlights. So we completed the end of the first tourist season for the Beach Ambassador Program, and I am quite pleased with the results. We will access all aspects of the program in the coming weeks, and assuming that the program is approved for a second year, we'll be discussing areas for improvement. Our patrolling activity will be diminished during the off-season, but we feel it is important that we don't let the education and the compliance of our ordinances take a break. For this first season, we recorded over 550 hours of beach patrolling. Just to give you a quick review on the ordinances, in terms of the beach gear, this, of course, was the first year that we required that all beach gear be removed between 8:30 p.m. and 6 a.m. We were as successful as we expected to be, given the challenge of enforcing this ordinance. It's a difficult ordinance to enforce. What I'm interested to see is next year how much of this education will spill over to our visitors coming back and new people coming to the island. So I'm anxious to see how that will take place, because the violations were far more than I expected to be, and Public Works was very supportive in helping us deal with those violations. In terms of our dune violations, though I can't prove it with hard numbers, I do believe that we saw the number of violations decrease during the course of the season, but again, that may be because the crowds decrease. But in any event, most violations, at least later in the season, seem to be pretty trivial in nature, which was good to see. An issue that I brought to your attention at the last meeting was our signage marking beach accesses. I felt that we needed an update to clearly mark what is and what is not illegal beach access. Since that last meeting, with the help of some very copious notes by the Beach Preservation Society and a lot of footwork by Daria, who was our UNCW intern, we made great strides in addressing this particular issue. She took notes from the BPS, and she went to the beach and took an inventory of all legal beach accesses. Her inventory also exposed a number of illegal beach accesses, which a lot of people are using. A list of these beach accesses will be completed soon for distribution to the ambassadors for next season, and then follow up with Public Works to address posts and ropes where needed will also be discussed in the off-season. I ran into a dog leash issue recently where I asked a lady if she had a leash for her large dog. She said, "Oh, I have a wireless leash." I said, "Do you now?" So she said, yes. She presented this this transmitter with an antenna, and the dog's collar was the receiver, and the antenna device, the dog responded to voice commands, he responded to vibration, and he responded to shock. So she owns a second home on the island, and she felt she was well within the ordinance, our dog leash ordinance. And after a conversation with animal control, it's been confirmed that that particular wireless device does not comply, because the ordinance says a dog must be physically restrained with a leash. So I'm not sure if we'll run into those again next season, but if we do, it's pretty clear cut that they do not comply. Holes on the beach, bad problem, big problem. We've done our best this year to try to stop holes in progress as we saw them, but many times they were abandoned and we couldn't find the owner. We do need to find a way during the off-season to increase the awareness of this program because it is getting worse. Very large holes, very frequent holes. The tide will not take care of them. They're just too large. And unfortunately, just last week, a young girl on an Oregon beach died. She was in a hole that collapsed, and she suffocated before they could, before enough people could get to her to pull her out of that hole. So that's a rare occurrence. You're not going to see many of those, but certainly we don't want it to happen on Oak Island. Litter, cigarette butts on the beach, getting better, getting better. We have distributed during the season a large number of compact and cup ashtrays. The ambassadors went through a couple of cases of those that we were able to get from a volunteer with a committee called Keep Brunswick County Beautiful. This guy works tirelessly, and he is able to get us these materials as we need them through grant money. So I'm pleased to tell you that one of our ambassadors, who is very passionate about cigarette butts on the beach, has reported a decrease in butts near the piers. So what she does is she takes these things to both piers and she hands them out to the fishermen. So it's working. Now we have a new issue, unfortunately, that has reared its ugly head, and we need your help on this one. This is the dangerous activity of shark baiting from kayaks just offshore. There have been several reports to ambassadors from both residents and visitors this year, and I think it's time that we need to address this and determine what we can do to stop it in the name of public safety. There was an editorial letter just last week in the Stateport Pilot from a lady in Raleigh that I actually spoke with when she explained how this was happening. Now, we understand from the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries, they say we have no jurisdiction below the mean high tide mark, so we can't enforce anything. However, independently, we have confirmed that Wrightsville Beach and Myrtle Beach both have ordinances on their books prohibiting shark baiting from either the pier or the shore. Now, whether these ordinances were, drafted and approved without any enforcement possibilities, maybe that is the case. I don't know. But it does beg the question, if these two communities are able to get around this marine fisheries edict, can we? I don't know. But the public safety of our residents and visitors is in jeopardy, and we need to consider what we can do to stop this activity. It's not good for our beach. Special recognition, as I close tonight, I would like to recognize several people who have contributed greatly to the success of the program. Obviously, Roseanne Fortner, who was very supportive of me and very helpful for me. But there are several ambassadors who went above and beyond the call of duty in performing their volunteer service. They are Cheryl Gardner, Ida Parker, and Elsbeth Miller, one that was put on the advisory board for BPS. All of them have been actively patrolling since we began Easter weekend. While all the ambassadors are responsible for the program's success, these three ladies really deserve special recognition for their additional efforts. Secondly, I would like to recognize Lee Hennett, who is here tonight, staff writer for the Stateport Pilot. Lee has been on board supporting our program through media coverage from the very beginning, and he has authored numerous articles during the season to keep pilot readers abreast of the program while increasing consumer awareness of the town's targeted ordinances. So appreciate your help there, Lee. So again, I feel very good about the results of this inaugural year. We have a meeting next week to review the results and then discuss all opportunities for improving the program next year, if you give us the approval for next year. So I and all of the ambassadors really do appreciate the support of the town, and we do look forward to 2015.
I would just like to say that this gentleman, Skip, has pretty much single-handedly been the pilot of this whole program. And he's been so successful with it and just so effective. I just want to personally thank him, and I just feel like that he's gone way beyond my expectations. And I think Mr. Melvin came up with the idea originally, but I just feel real good about where we're at on the program. I want to personally thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Mr. Foster, may I ask that you work with Mr. Eads before the next meeting? I had pretty much ignored those that said that at Myrtle Beach they had ordinances against chumming for shark or baiting for shark. But if there's one in a North Carolina town, is it Topsley said?
No, it's Riceville Beach, but I just don't even know if that's enforceable because specifically and very specifically, the North Carolina Marine Resources they're responsible below the mean high tide, and that's unequivocal.
Yeah, that's what we've been told by
South
them.
Carolina's a whole different situation, Skip, because that's a different state, and I'm not sure who's in control down there.
Skip, perhaps if you don't mind, help me get in touch with Wrightsville Beach, check into their ordinance and find out if they are able to enforce it. And this is specifically chumming and baiting for shark. It's not fishing for shark. We've had a couple of kids in kayaks go out beyond the breakers and chum the water and then come back in and fish for the shark from the shore. So I guess that's what they like to do. Next is administrative reports. Mr. Foster, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very brief as I possibly can. Let me find my stuff here. Not too much paper. Here we go. I put a little memo in or an email out regarding the sound barriers on North Middleton. I guess y'all had an opportunity to review that. For the public's benefit, the council directed me to check with the North Carolina Department of Transportation on the possibility of erection of sound abatement structures on North Middleton in order to address stated issue of noise generated from road traffic for those residents. And I spoke with Anthony Law, who's division engineer in Wilmington, and I outlined the issue with him. We explored a number of options to try to placate the problem or try to moderate the problem. And he stated after looking at it and going over it that these lots are so small and are so close together that any type with the driveway that would be necessary to be there, sound abatement would almost be impossible. And the other problem is, of course, is the space involved with earthen berm in order to put that there. Because these lots, I think there's about one every 55 feet or so, each one of these. Anyway, we discussed a number of things in that regard. He also stated that the traffic count on North Middleton coming down the bridge or going up either way was about the same or maybe even less than what it is on Oak Island Drive. He says the same speed limit, but matter of fact, traffic's decelerating at that point. And he didn't know exactly if there really was a noise issue there because of the amount of traffic we currently have. Now, he said that could change, as more people start using the bridge, but currently he didn't see that as a huge issue with it. We talked a little bit about the commercial access, and he said that would need to be reviewed, any type of ingress or egress into any of those lots. And it would probably require some type of access lane, which would eat up land going in and out of that. So he said that he said he'd be glad to consider that if that's what the board wanted to do. But he said it did have limitations, pretty severe limitations on that. So that's where we're at on the North Middleton information on that. Tennis court, you touched on, the ball field. Thank goodness we're getting some timers on there that work. That was getting pretty critical. Welcome signs.
I don't mean to interrupt, but on the ball field, we had asked that we get in contact with Southport to ask if they would participate in the cost of.
And I have not done that.
Okay, would you mind?
I've called Heather Hemphill, but we haven't connected on it. So.
Okay.
All right. Let me see, write that down.
Didn't mean to interrupt you. And I heard that they were gonna change the name to Oak Island Dixie Youth instead of Southport Oak Island.
I'd heard that, but I don't know that for a fact. I'm not sure. Welcome signs, we finally got one of our welcome signs up, and it looks pretty good. I was real pleased with it. They must have gone out and had to smelt the bauxite to get it made, because it took 1.5 years to get it. But we did get one. I understand they sent a crew of 10 people down to get it up. So hopefully we'll get the other one over on the Swains Cut Bridge here pretty soon. Paid parking, RFP, those requests for proposals, Chris Napinski's working on that, and they'll be going out in the mail for 2 weeks. Apparently, there's still 2 firms very interested in submitting a proposal, and we've identified a new method of implementation not involving parking meters and expensive equipment, and that's by use of license tag recognition equipment, which would cut out all that expense, plus it'd make it a little more aesthetically pleasing to be able to get down that road if we could. Let's see what else. I got another one over here somewhere. Flood maps. The new flood maps have been generated. And Josh, you want to make just some brief comments on that real quick?
The new flood maps, or what they call the preliminary flood maps, have come out. If you would like to view them, you can go to ncfloodmaps.com. If you're not real familiar with how to use that website, myself, Steve Edwards, Donna Coleman are on it all the time. The flood maps that I've seen, the changes that will take effect sometime, I would say June, July of next year, are overwhelmingly positive for the town of Oak Island. You're going to see a lot less VE areas, which, depending on your perspective, it would reduce the height of homes, because you can't build a 41-foot tall home in any area except for a VE. But conversely, if you've built a home and it meets the VE 16 and the flood map drops it to AE 10, you've got your maximum flood benefit automatically. So your flood insurance will just drastically be reduced. I'll give you a prime example of that. Yopon Dunes, you may be aware of it. I'm assuming all of y'all know where Yopon Dunes is. Based on the preliminary flood maps, right now it's in 2 VE zones and an AE zone. So every homeowner in that condo complex is paying an astronomical amount, as you do on the island. It's all being changed to AE. No VE, shaded X. So it doesn't not even require flood insurance anymore. If I remember looking at it correctly, I think it's been changed from a VE to a shaded X. Is that correct, Steve? Yes. Yeah, the vast majority of those units won't even have to have flood insurance. So you're going to see a significant insurance savings for a lot of our residents who unfortunately have had to experience the Bigger Waters Act that came down from the United States government. So I think the flood maps are good for Brunswick County, not just Oak Island. They really are. Again, if you need assistance trying to figure out where you are, contact Development Services. Speak with myself, Donna Coleman, or Steve Edwards. We can all get on the internet together. We'll click it together, and you can see the exact same information we use to tell you what's going on.
And I may ask, Josh, that you and Steve, in a future council meeting that's not quite so busy, bring us information about the effect of those that are currently in the VE zone that are going to be going into AE or X, as far as they would be non-conforming uses then at the 41-foot height. We might have to look at that.
Well, I mean, we may very well have to look at some provision that would allow for them to rebuild after, say, a disaster or a fire or something like that. But that shouldn't be too extensive for what we would have to do. I mean,
we can do that.
Sir.
Thank you.
Quick update on paramedic progress on that. Chris, you want to make just a real 1 or 2 minute statement on that?
Back in early July, I met with Brunswick County EMS in reference to our request to go paramedic level. They approved that. It went on to the Quality Improvement Committee, which I met and presented them with our proposal on August 7th. And on August 13th, I was notified that it was approved by them. So, we have been approved to move forward with the paramedic level service beginning January 1st, 2015. The only thing that's yet to be done is the Brunswick County Commissioners need to approve it, but I've been assured that's basically in a consent agenda item. It's basically a non-issue. It's more of a notification than anything else. Once we get to the point where we are now, we're good to go. The next step is DEA and DHHS licenses, and then ordering of medications and the other materials that we need. And of course, we're starting the paramedic class as well. But we do have 9 shift paramedics right now that we currently have on staff, plus administratively, we have myself and Bobby Carmen, and of course, Chief Conway. So that's an additional 3 to those 9 shift paramedics. So we are moving forward, and we should begin paramedic level service January 1st.
Thank you, Chris.
Good deal.
John.
Good deal.
And mosquito truck, right now, as
Sandra's still here.
I'm sorry?
Is Sandra still here? You left.
And we are, in fact, spraying, right, John? On a regular basis. We got bigger, badder mosquitoes this year. They're not dying as well. So, but we're doing it. Last year, we had a real scare, or 2 years ago, that EPA was getting ready to ban all mosquito spraying completely. So we're kind of living on borrowed time at this point, being able to spray it all, but we're doing the best we can with the mosquitoes. Also, John this week is planning on opening up, matter of fact, tomorrow, RFPs for paving that we can hope to get done while we can this paving year for the area of Dolphin Drive that we did not finish. Yacht Drive, Northeast 58th Street, and it was Northeast 40th? Okay. And we'll be getting those in tomorrow and see what kind of bids we get. We're going to have 3 companies bidding on it, so hopefully we'll get some good bids on it. That's it, Madam Mayor.
John, this is saying a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but the next time the mosquito truck goes by Sandra's house, I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, because she swears she and her neighbors watch, knock on her door. You know where she lives. Okay. Next, we go into the old business section. Number 1 is consideration of amendments to 4648446 and 4-49 of the Code of Ordinances. It's animal control issues. And Councilor Painter, would you like to just review the differences for the general public?
Basically, the one ordinance has, our ordinance has been beefed up a little to allow the animal control officers to require an animal or a dog that is found to be a nuisance on the beach, off of the owner's property, anywhere off of the owner's property, but our specific concern was on the beach to, if the animal is found to be a nuisance, then the animal control officer can request that the owner take the dog off the beach immediately. And, that's basically it, plus we're changing the hours, or the proposal is to change the hours in the off-season for dogs to be allowed on the beach, off-leash, to start at 6 a.m. and go to 8 p.m.
And that's from October 15th to March 15th.
October 15th to March 15th.
And also, we beefed up Section 449 and clarified dogs on public property for the control, that they must be under the control, and it adds if they exhibit aggression, they must be removed from public area. So that beefs that up also. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, if I could just note that 449 will not be the correct number. That'll be a new ordinance, and we'll let Municode tell us what number that should be. So
Okay.
it'll just be 3 previous numbers and then an ordinance to be numbered later.
Okay.
Okay.
6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., that's after the time change, so it's going to be dark at 6 p.m. People people take their dogs on the beach after dark.
Yeah, they may not get home from work until 6 p.m. Yeah.
I take mine out at about 5:30, so.
Madam Mayor?
Please.
I make a motion to adopt the ordinance amendments to sections 4-6, 4-8, 4-46, and 4-49, or whatever the number is, as presented.
Have a motion, a second by Counselor Kaiser. Any further discussion by the council, please? All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Don't y'all be joking about Jake.
Sorry.
Not him, the manager's dog. Next is consideration of enforcement options for illegal fireworks. Chief Editor, give us a magic ordinance.
Well, we don't have an ordinance. It's a state law.
Give us a magic law that you can actually enforce.
State law's there. We can enforce the state law as is. The problem being is the busiest month is July. The first week, well, the week before 4th and the week after 4th, we receive about 25 calls. And that doesn't include the calls we don't receive. There's a lot of fireworks, but that's about 2% of the call volume in July. But the big problem is we go from a regular month of 600 calls, dispatch calls, to 1,200 calls during July. With 4 people on the street, that's the same amount of people we have all year round. So those officers are responding to those double amount of calls during that month. So we don't concentrate solely on the 25 firework calls we get during July. The proposal you got in your memo is just one proposal. I'm open for suggestions. This is just one proposal I've got to dedicate one officer to do nothing but solely go around, find fireworks violators, enforce it, charge them, seize the fireworks. And, you know, other than bringing other people in from other departments, I talked to Mr. Medlin tonight, which we talked about bringing the sheriff's department in, and he said something about, you know, if we had to pay the sheriff's department, I would be opposed to that. I think we should pay, if we pay any overtime to anybody, it should be our own town employees. So the way we do it now with Beach Patrol is I utilize off-duty Oak Island police officers to do the beach patrol, and we pay them overtime. That would be my suggestion if you want me to go after the fireworks violators, which was it in my proposal. I would have one officer during that time period to do nothing but solely go out, find the violators, and charge them.
And you would be able, in next year's budget discussions, to kind of calculate what you would need in the budget for that enforcement period for council approval before, I mean, next budget year begins July 1st.
Yeah, I removed $10,000 from the budget last year without being asked. That $10,000 was removed. So
might put it back in.
It's be pretty close to that if you want the whole summer, or if you want to narrow it down to just July or June. But we're only talking about 2% of the call volume in July. So.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
What we talked about earlier, the chief and I, you know, it may be possible to get the sheriff's department to, during those 2 weeks, to beef up their patrol here and assist with that. And I'm going to be talking to them later on in the week, and thought I might just run it by him. So we don't have to make a decision on this tonight.
No, we don't have to make a decision on it.
We got plenty of
I've got a
time.
pretty good working relationship with the sheriff.
Yeah.
And he would probably do it. But the minute that he does it for us, he's going to be asked by Holden Beach, Sunset, Ocean Isle. And,
Well, maybe not. You know, maybe they hadn't asked him. Maybe they won't ask him.
Maybe
But
they'll
we
have
will.
a problem.
I'm pretty sure they'll ask him.
Let's see what he says. I mean, if he doesn't do it, then we're back to square one. If they're willing to offer us some officers, I know they have deputies on duty that patrol this area, and maybe they could be designated here during that 2-week period to assist with that. We'll just see what they say.
Yeah, I have no problem asking. I think that their call volume probably increases during that month, just like we do. But I'm not opposed to asking.
Okay. I mean, I understand the dilemma, and I understand, I understand the problem. I know it is a problem, and I know it's very difficult to enforce. And you and I talked about this. I mean, it's gonna take some pretty creative policing to get out on the beach and actually catch these guys. But I'd like to see us devise a plan between now and then to really do something about it and put some teeth into it, and I think we can do that.
Well, I don't normally guarantee anything, especially the council and the mayor. If I put hand-picked officers out to do the enforcement, I will guarantee there'll be charges and there'll be seizures of fireworks. I will guarantee that. You might not be happy on Monday morning, but there will be charges.
And most of the complaints that we got this past year were from people living in the wooded section or neighborhoods where, as you said, the unexploded powder was coming down like snow on the trees.
You know, Chief, I don't have any problem with, you know, with authorizing this money if for a little peace and repose at night and being able to sleep and not having, you know, burning debris on the top of my house and my neighbors' houses and everything else. So, you know, it's almost, you know, people want to think this is funny, but it's not funny. This is serious. And these explosives are inherently dangerous. People get hurt with these things. And
It's like I explained to Mr. Medlin, these charges, they're not simple infraction charges. These people get charged, it's a misdemeanor violation. And it's a pretty serious charge. So once they get this charge and have to go to court and pay some serious fines, I think the word will get out. But you being a former police officer, you know, we have to actually go up and catch somebody in possession of fireworks.
Yeah. And being a former police officer, I also know that, you know, we can also do some stuff with different shifts and detectives and one thing and another for a short period of time and having some more manpower out there at the same rate of pay. Also, a couple of signs at the entrances to both bridges, you know, state and general statutes, and that it's strictly enforced. I don't think people would have any room to complain at all if they're charged with this.
Yeah, the sign issue, I guess you'd have to talk to John about the state right away. You'd have to talk to the state about putting signs out there. As far as moving manpower around, just like I explained, this is our busiest time of the year. I would be opposed to moving people around and increase workloads on certain people. I think you're talking about detectives.
Whoever, administrative people, anybody.
Well, I'm knee-deep in the budget at that particular time, so I'd be glad to come out and write tickets and go to court, but I'm knee-bit the budget, that process, you know, that's, you know, I don't have a problem moving manpower around, but when you shift people around and shift workloads, you know, the victims are not going to be real happy when the detectives can't call them and make contact with them about their cases.
Well, I mean, it's, you know, I'm not saying permanently. I'm just saying for, you know, a few days during that time period. I don't see that it would hurt, but, you know, it's up to you. I'm just saying, you know, it's a little thinking out of the box and charging a few people. I think it would make a heck of a difference here. And, you know, like I say, I'm sick of it, and the people that have contacted me are sick of it. So
well, I've
I'm
got
ready
officers
to,
that would
you know, give you whatever help you need to.
Well, money's what I need. So if you're not opposed to giving me money, I'm all for it.
Okay, you know, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the $10,000 and help the chief all he needs to take care of this problem. Approve the enforcement options and the $10,000 to the police department budget.
Should we not wait until we talk with the sheriff's department and see what they can do?
Wait a minute, before you begin discussions, let's complete the motion and ask that the finance officer prepare a budget amendment.
Okay.
To add to your motion.
Just as a note, if we're discussing this as for July 4th week, that would be next fiscal year. So that would not be a budget amendment at this time. That'd be something we would prepare in next year's budget.
Okay.
If it was enforcement prior to July 1st, then it would be something in this year's budget. So just to clarify.
Are you making the motion to include in this year's budget for any possible needs he may have in this year's budget? Like I said, this wouldn't apply until next year's budget.
I don't think there'd be any needs much until around New Year's or something like that. I don't think.
New Year's may be, you know, but that would be this year's budget. Okay.
And it doesn't say you still can't contact the sheriff or whoever if we need some more help, but I think this would be a good start. I think you should be able to.
And I think I could,
progress.
the money I have in the budget now for overtime, think I can suffice, that first week of July. The new budget don't kick in until July 1st anyway. I would just put that money that I took out this budget year back in there.
We have a motion.
Sorry, I didn't understand. Put it back in for this year?
No, for the next budget year, after July 1st.
He would just include this in the
Yeah,
next.
I would include the 10,000 I took out this current budget year
Right.
into the next current budget.
And you can handle New Year's with the officers that you have?
We can handle New Year's.
Okay. We have a motion. Could we have a second on the motion to continue discussion, please?
I'll second it.
Second by Counselor Kaiser. Okay, now,
Discussion.
I'm just going to say I'm not going to vote for this right now. I would like to wait.
I'd actually like to wait, but I also like to say that I think most of the firework activity happens in the month of July. And I don't think we need to do that whole stretch, because I live right there on Dolphin, like I said. And it's like a war zone the month of July. I mean, they're up against the house, they're going off everywhere. I was sitting outside and I was getting showered by everything. But it really wasn't this month. It may be a sporadic here or there. And I don't see spending all $10,000 on all these months when we got a focus point. And that's what we need to concentrate on. And we only need to do that, the sheriff tells us no. If they're willing to give us free manpower, then I say we utilize free manpower.
any further discussion?
But you did say you think if you've got enough, if we have some fireworks on the 31st, that you can get some.
Yeah, I've got the
extra
numbers.
people out there to maybe just.
Yeah, January, January's not, if you're talking about January 1st, New Year's.
Yeah, well, usually.
We don't have, we've got one call for January, so we don't have June and July are the two high volume months, and it's the end of June and the beginning of July. That's
The
your
week
two.
before the 4th?
The week before the 4th, and then the week after the 4th.
And I think we got a little time before budget time comes to find out what the sheriff's department's gonna say. If he says no, then we go ahead and say we need some money.
I mean, I don't have it, as I told you, I don't have an issue with doing whatever we need to do. And I'm not against giving you the $10,000 that you need, but I would like to explore the other options before I vote on this.
The only thing about the sheriff's department, I'm not speaking for the sheriff. If he does dedicate 2 officers or 1 officer or whatever officer during that period, if something happens in the county, that officer's gonna be called out. He's not gonna be left here. They're not gonna dedicate somebody here full-time. So if he gets
Well,
a call.
they're assigned to areas, as you well know, and there's an officer assigned to our area 24 hours a day. And, I just think it would behoove us to explore that avenue before we do this. And if it doesn't work out, and it may not, then we can come back and do this. That's where I am.
I just think if we've got a problem, we need to solve it here and be done with it. I don't think we need to depend on anybody else.
Any further discussion, please? If not, all those in favor, please. All those opposed, please. Motion fails with Councilors Weinkauf, Painter, and Medlin dissenting. And we'll be talking to you again about this.
Okay.
Next is discussion of the implementation of the new polycart regulations. This is John Michaud. He's our Public Works Director.
Good evening.
And thank you for the stop sign.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome. As you know, the council approved amendments to our solid waste ordinance last month. Primarily, there were a number of changes, as you know, but the primary change was regulating when people could put out their polycarts no sooner than 2 p.m. the day prior to the collection day, and they had to be returned no later than 7 p.m. the day of collection. This was and will be effective October 1st. Most of the people that I've spoken with about this particular ordinance agree with the benefits of these changes as they relate to safety, keeping the bike path clear for pedestrians and bicyclists, litter control, just the aesthetics in general, the looks of the island. I think most people certainly agree with that and support it. What I've found is there's a number of questions about some different things, and October 1st is a little too aggressive in 2020 hindsight in terms of implementation. Some of the things that I certainly feel strong about, and I know Mr. Foster does, is making sure that everybody is aware, just the public education component of this new requirement, or these new requirements. Also, just as important is the implications to all those affected by these changes, and making sure that council is very clear and, about how this would impact the residents and property owners on the island. So I know that's very important as well. And the third is what role, if any, the town should play in facilitating compliance. So there are a number of questions out there, and what I would like to do tonight is to request that we delay enforcement of this particular ordinance until April 1st to allow us time to further evaluate and provide council with an update, if not next month, no later than November, regarding the implications and where we are with public education, and so everybody's fully informed about how we could proceed with this particular requirement.
Thank you, John. Let me add to that. I've got barraged with homeowners down along Beach Drive and Dolphin and those areas that we're restricting. And it wasn't from the rental agencies. I think the rental agencies, I believe, would probably look at coming in compliance without too much problem. A majority of these houses down there are rental houses, but there are those that do live down there, and that's where the problem comes in. I just passed out this, and I think you had copies of this before. What we would like to do is maybe try to be as consistent as we can with the current regulations and rules that they have at Caswell Beach, since they're already up and running, and I think we could meld into that a lot easier, maybe in coming up with our own plan. So there's really two parts to this. Number one, we would like to maybe try to do the same thing and being consistent with Caswell Beach. And the reason for the delay is trying to educate these people that do have homes down there what we are doing. And I think there's a total misunderstanding on their part what it is. Caswell Beach, as you'll see in this flyer, charges each homeowner $140 for rollback service. And that gets these carts back off of the road. And like I said, 85% of these carts are rental carts. And that's really where a lot of our problems are coming from. The other part is, and this is more of the rental agency problem of getting the renters, is I believe we had someone talk about it a little earlier, get it out on time so they can be picked up. So you don't have this trash sitting around and 2 weeks stacking up and this and that. But in any event, we're working on trying to get the kinks out of this thing, but we feel like we do need some more time to educate the public, and it's not the rental agents as much as it is the private homeowners and what we can do. The ones that I've talked to, I've told them about the Caswell Beach method, and a couple of them said, we don't feel like we want to pay $140 to have this done. Well, you know, to be in compliance, this would certainly do that. Rental agencies, I don't think would have a problem since they're already doing this at Caswell Beach at $140 service for a year getting this back. But somebody has to take responsibility for it, and you know, we need to consistently enforce it across the board for both rental agencies and for these homeowners. Now, I guess that's about, does that hit it, John?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's it, but there's we could, not golf carts, but we could talk for a while about it. I think what we need to do is spend more time on it and come back to council with some recommendations. And we'd like to have some time to do that and delay enforcement.
So do we have a motion from council to delay enforcement?
Madam Mayor,
Please.
I make a motion to delay enforcement of the amendments approved to Division 2 Residential Refuse, Sections 24-61 through 63 and 24-69 until April 1st, 2015.
Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Counselor Medlin. Is there any further discussion from council? If not, all those in favor? And it is unanimous. We've been in session almost another hour and a half, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. Okay, we will call the meeting back to order. Next item is the first item under new business, and that is our fire chief, Chief Anselmo, is going to discuss the Knox boxes.
Mayor Wallace and Town Council, I prepared a statement over the weekend. I'll just go ahead and read it as written. On the Knox box ordinance, due to public outcry as the fire chief, I am recommending that the Knox box ordinance be amended to allow existing businesses that do not have a monitored alarm system or a sprinkler system in place to be recommended and not required to install a Knox box. It must be noted, however, that all new and existing commercial structures with a monitored alarm or sprinkler system will still be required to have a Knox box. All new businesses with or without a monitored alarm or sprinkler system will also be required to have a Knox box. While less than desirable, I am recommending the change due to several complaints that I've received. There have also been inaccurate information as well as misconceptions posted on Facebook and other social media sites. Therefore, I would like to take this opportunity to provide some clarification. The Knox box program is a highly secure means of securing a key to a structure in a steel box. A steel box in which the fire department can access for easy, damage-free entry to the structure, and also affords a way to resecure the structure when the investigation or mitigation of the potential problem is complete. As far as the security of the key inside the Knox box, it would be easier for a potential burglar or thief to break into the structure itself instead of the Knox box. Through a strict agreement with the Knox company, the box can only be accessed in a true emergency situation or to update the keys inside the box. In the past 3 weeks, the fire department has had to force entry into 2 structures causing damage. Although the damage was minimal, the cost to repair that damage is the responsibility of the owner, occupant, and not the fire department. In both cases, the cost of a Knox box would be less expensive than the repair. The fire department is required by law to enter and clear any potential hazard or fire in all structures, both commercial and residential. If the fire department does not gain entry and declares the building safe from the exterior, without any interior investigation, then the fire department, as well as any county, city, or town that governs that fire department, will be liable if that building is later found to be on fire or burns down. Several lightning strikes in the past 3 years have resulted in fires on Oak Island, in buildings that were unoccupied. In all of those instances, it has been determined that lightning struck several hours before the fire department was dispatched. The flames and smoke went undetected to anyone outside of those structures until it was too late. One of those structures required a new roof, and 2 of those structures were a total loss. If the fire department was called immediately after those lightning strikes and just did an interior check and saw nothing and left the scene, then the fire department would bear the full responsibility of those structures burning down. As the fire chief, that is not a risk that I'm willing to take. Therefore, all of my staff has strict orders. Those orders are to gain access to any structure, residential or commercial, that has a legitimate threat of any potential hazard or a threat to life and or property. Whether it is a Knox box, a window, a roof, or a door, we will gain entry to the structure. We will take every precaution to do the minimal damage possible and to secure the structure to the best of our ability when our job is complete, but the owner-occupant is completely responsible for all repairs. The new updated ordinance will be presented at the next town council meeting on October 14, 2014. In the meantime, the current ordinance will not be enforced until the update has been approved on that date. On a final note, I would like to make it clear to the public that the current ordinance was changed by me, not Mayor Wallace, C. Foster, or the town council. It was done with nothing but good intentions, and the fire department is simply trying to avoid unnecessary damage and still do our job in protecting the property owners, the residents, and the visitors of this island. Sincerely, Chris Anselmo, Fire Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Any further comments or discussion from council?
What is the cost of a knock box?
Knox box cost is anywhere from $243, I think it is, to $400, depending on the size. There's 3 different sizes that we recommend. One of them is a residential box. Another one is a mid-size, which is for like a single business. And then there's a larger box, depending on how many keys you have to put in it. And we've also put out there that businesses in strip malls, such as, Kings and that strip mall and some others, if they wanted to combine those keys into one box and all of them split the cost of that box and label the keys inside of it, that was fine with the fire department. But again, we've had obviously several complaints. So that's the direction that we're willing to go. But again, those are existing businesses that do not have a monitored system. And they can be grandfathered in. But if that business is sold, part of the process of taking over that business will be to establish a Knox box.
So we need to put what he just said in the form of a motion?
Well, I'm going to give you the new updated ordinance. It will be in your packet on your, agenda for the next meeting. We just didn't have time to update it and put it together for this meeting, but I wanted to give a report, and next meeting you will have it. Until then, we are not enforcing the way it currently is written. We will wait until the new one is written.
And I just want to say, we thank you for listening to the people. That's what we're supposed to do, and I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
We did have an incident, when was this, last week or 2 weeks ago, for residents.
Yes.
Alarm went off in the residence, and they had to break a window out to get in. And I would encourage residents, especially if they don't live here, to have a Knox box put on. It's not just for businesses, but it would be something that they could do rather than breaking a door down or breaking out a window, where they can get in and check the house. If you're in Charlotte or Raleigh or Greensboro, a lot of the time, I think in this instance, you try to reach the property owner.
In that instance, the property owner we attempted to contact them multiple times. The police department also attempted to contact them multiple times and was not able to get them, and that's actually written in the police report.
So it would be a real benefit for residents to also do this as well, too. But that's not going to be mandatory, that's just suggested.
And I think, Chris, we need to try to do a little bit of educational with the business, because I agree with it. We're required to have Knox boxes, because we cannot open a new building without one.
Right.
The fire department will not let us, and we're doing a lot of construction where we're at right now.
We're not, everyone has ordinances on Knox box. Well, I won't say everyone, but a large majority of fire departments, towns, cities, they do have Knox box ordinances. We're not the only ones. We can get into a building. In the fire service, there's a saying, and Jim and Danny, you guys have been in this service, the fire department has a key to everything. We don't need a Knox box to get into it. We're just trying to
minimize damage,
to minimize or eliminate damage to the owner, or the building owner. It's not for our sake, it's for theirs. So, but like I said, due to the public outcry, we're willing to step back to that and move forward.
Okay. So you'll bring some in October?
October, you will have it, yes.
Thank
Mayor
you, sir.
Wallace, I'd like to
Please.
make a statement. I believe in the Knox box program, and I have a monitored alarm at our house, and I've had a Knox box on it since I moved in that house, because I quite honestly don't want the alarm to go off and them to tear my door down and me have to put a door. So it's a cheap price. So I think we have 4 residences with monitored alarms
We have about
on the island.
About 60 altogether, but 4 of them are residential.
Yeah,
and
so
the rest
I
are
have no
commercial.
problem with it. It was money well spent. It's peace of mind.
Exactly. Okay. Next is consideration of proposals to develop a comprehensive land use plan and unified development ordinance. Mr. Crook, please.
Madam Mayor, Council, currently, our comprehensive land use plan is the CAMA land use plan. That's it. That's what we've got. We also have the Second Bridge Corridor Plan, which I believe was created in the 90s, late 90s, maybe early 90s. We have the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We have the Downtown Development Plan. We have the Ocean and Estuarine Access Plan, the Bicycle Transportation Plan, the 201 Facilities Plan, Business and Tourism Alliance Plan, and a golf cart transportation plan that somebody said we spent $21,000 on.
We did in 2011.
We did. Make that clear, we did.
Well, somebody did. Somebody paid $21,000. You guys did, but somebody paid $21,000.
Council at the time approved,
Town did.
yeah.
Yeah. So we've got 8 plans. How do you make them all work together? How do you get them all updated? How do you make this happen? Well, how you do that, you get a consultant, or you get a COG, the Council of Governments, people who do this on a daily basis, to take the plans that we have, take the written plans that we have, find the good in them, make them work, make a plan happen, get them all together. The CAMA land use plan doesn't even require an update anymore. We don't have to do anything but approve the one that's from 2009 from now until they change the law. And it is just whatever, it's still calling for a second bridge. We've got one, you know. We've got 2 issues here. All of these plans made sense to some council for some reason. The CAMA land use plan made sense to a lot of councils all over the United States, I guess. They handle everything on the coastal areas, even in river areas, I guess. It's time that we put them together, took the good out of them, see what works best for the town, and make a comprehensive long-range or comprehensive land use plan that puts them all together and gives this town a true direction. In conjunction with that, the town is using a code of ordinance. They worked wonderful. They really have in the past. They've helped towns grow. They've helped towns expand. Well, we've outgrown ours, quite frankly. Ours is it's like an old pair of jeans with patches all over it, and that's what our code of ordinance has become. Every issue that comes up with the new technologies, the new way things are being done, let's change it. Let's change it. Let's change it. Well, not to say that all plans won't need some tweaking from time to time, but if we take a comprehensive land use plan, get a direction from, and that includes citizen input, multiple citizen input meetings, whatever group wants to be in there, capital improvements, all the committees would have a say and a time to speak and to put input before you guys make a decision. But that UDO brings it all together. The county has a UDO. Anybody can go on the website. Most municipalities have UDOs. And for those who don't know what that means, that's a Unified Development Ordinance. So our code of ordinance was more than likely, based on my experience with working with our code of ordinances, that it's somebody else's ordinance we borrowed prior to 2001 and stuck it in a book. Because 2001 was when the effective date was, I think it was June 12, 2001. It's time that we've updated this stuff. It's time that we're no longer a one-horse show, as they say. We're a town with a very expensive sewer system. We're a town that has, in I guess the CAMA land use plan, the last update, it said in 2007 we had 8,147 developed lots, and we only had 12,000 something developed lots or developable lots on the whole island. At some point, we're going to develop to a point where we're redeveloping. We're tearing down older structures, and just like any other municipality that has to do that. So we need to be prepared for that. We need to have a plan that is simpler to change as it needs to be changed. We've all been through the the parking, which we're gonna continue to go through. We've all been through the big house thing. When you saw what I proposed for the large structures, it was everything in Chapter 18. You know, UDOs, you may not have to do that with it. It may, you address those issues ahead of time. And I believe it's time that we do that. We saw, as you can see in your packets, we sought the help of Holland Consulting Planners. For full disclosure, I graduated college with Landon, who is the son of Dale. Dale used to do speaking at the college, so I do have a personal relationship with him. It's not it's not, I don't get to choose, so as the same thing with the dredging, I don't get a vote. So, but they happen to be one of the two people that provided us with a RFP. We did an RFQ with them because it was over $50,000. But the mayor, Mr. Foster, and I spoke with them, and it's a very detailed process that I don't believe people working full-time jobs and volunteering for the planning board have time to do. There is no other staff member in my department until October 1st, so I'm not real sure I'd be able to do this either. But we've received qualifications from both Holland Consulting Planners, who you can just look at their resume. They've done it all over the area, and then the Cape Fear Council of Governments. It would be my recommendation that we let Planning Board interview both of our qualifiers. Let the Planning Board bring questions to them. We'll have a meeting just for this purpose to let them make a recommendation to council. Which one, neither, move in a different direction. Let's let the Planning Board deal with the development and growth of the town and make a recommendation to you. Again, I think, does anybody got any feedback?
I like that idea of letting them present to the planning board because, and I love it that we're finally we have as much land mass on the mainland as we do on the island now, after 2008 and 2009. So it's like you said, all these different plans, and I think I found the one from the Department of Commerce way back years ago about the commercial corridor.
Mm-hmm. I can see no negative to this process.
I'd like to make a motion, Madam Mayor.
Please.
I would move that the council direct the planning board to schedule presentations from both firms to see which one is best suited to provide the level of service desired, and the planning board can then make a recommendation to the council.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Weinkauf. Any further discussion by the council members, please? If not.
Wait.
Great.
Spending no money.
Well, I realize that, but I will make a point of discussion that I think I was totally flabbergasted by the amount of money that would cost the town. And I'm wondering if there are any other avenues that could be pursued. I was glad to see that the Council of Governments, I'm just going to go ahead and state the way I'm feeling about this, even though we're not spending the money now so far. I was glad to see the Council of Governments proposal was a phased approach, and they said that their amount of $80,000 could be trimmed down quite a bit if we went with a phased approach, doing first the comprehensive land use plan and then a unified development ordinance. And so, I mean, but that's still just an astonishing amount of money to me to accomplish this goal. And I know that we have 3 new members on the planning board that, at least one of which has done a lot of work on an ordinance. I'm just not good with this so far, with just talking about spending this kind of money.
The process is a 18-month at a minimum to 2.5-year process. In my way of thinking, and I'll lay it out. a hiccup in our sewer system can cost us that much money on a weekend. We're talking about the plan for the future of this entire community. How important is that?
There is one other thing too. We did actually have 3 people or 3 agencies that we were working with. The third was the Division of Community Assistance under the Department of Commerce. And they didn't say that they could or they couldn't, but they said they would talk to us about it. Well, since then, the budget's been cut for the Division of Community Assistance, and I think they lost quite a bit of their staff, and I think the rest of them, they moved to Raleigh. So there were 3 of them that we were talking to, and they would have been, we've already gotten them to do 1 study for the
Yeah, they
town.
did the commercial corridor study.
They would have been free.
I don't believe that's a viable option anymore.
They would have been free, but they were at best a year and 7 months out before they could even take on a project.
And then they lost their staff, so.
Well, the biggest thing I'm wanting is, when the planning board hears this, they can discuss with these firms and come back with a unified motion. Everybody can agree on something. And if they all agree this is the best way to go, or if they all agree to say, look, we can do most of this stuff ourselves, then that's the way we go. But we're getting a recommendation from them. And I think that's a good thing.
And I'm glad to see us finally getting all this. I think we did some updates to the land use plan in 2012, early 2012. But to finally, like you said, get all of these, how many times during council meetings over the past 6, 7, 8 years have we heard it complies with our county land use plan, or according to our bridge corridor plan, or according to the old Long Beach, or the old Yopon commercial corridor. We've heard that piecemeal for years.
Our county land use plan has a provision that it tells you to reference. You reference whatever plan it is. I haven't even found all the plans. I just know they exist. I mean, the 201 facility plan is, I believe, locked up in one of your storage facilities. Well, the one David has, the hard copy.
It's out there somewhere. It's also that thick.
Yeah, and it affects land use. I mean, I don't use it that often. I've actually only had to reference it once in the entire time I've had to do anything. And that was about sewer for the Charles. Thank God David knew where it was, but parts of it could be incorporated into this plan. So.
Part of the problem over the years is we haven't had a plan. There's no unified plan available, and I've screamed this since I've been on council, that we had to do this. Frankly, I don't care who does it. And at this point, it's such a need that I think we're going to have to spend some money to do it, whether we pay someone else to do it or whether our staff does it. It's going to cost us to get it done, but we need this plan.
And the county the county has their Unified Development Ordinance.
Correct.
We can look at theirs and kind of use that as a guideline, because they're covering all the unincorporated areas.
At the last planning board meeting, the planning board itself requested to review the county's UDO. Obviously, instead of printing it out, I just instructed them to go to the internet, and it's there. So they're already looking into that type of stuff. Mr. Foster's been around a heck of a lot longer than me. No offense.
At least since Noah, anyway.
But he's dealt with the county land use plan in every municipality he's worked with, and I'd like for him to share his thoughts on it.
Well, it's like this. It's sort of like save a penny, lose a million kind of thing. And I'm very sensitive to what Councilor Painter's saying. It's one of those things that, you get a plan, you put it on the shelf, and it looks good, and it's kind of nice, but, we've paid a lot of money for that thing. The thing's just sitting there. But I think more often than not, particularly with the latest thing about these large houses, I think it indicates we got a vacuum somewhere that we need to fill. And rather than being reactive, we need to be proactive in trying to solve these things up front, the front end, rather than go along and putting a Band-Aid on an amputated leg and hope that's going to solve the problem again. We were fortunate enough that we were able to resolve the big house issue with Jeff here, the suggestion he came up with. But is that the end? Is that going to be the end of it? No. I think he even recognizes that this is just a Band-Aid we're putting on until then. So I was hoping maybe we could find, and this price you saw, I mean, that was just, here again, like with the Mini Brooks Act, that's just the first negotiating thing. And the other thing I'm thinking is, we've already had a lot of public input on this from other exercises that we've had, and I don't know it's gonna be that much different. And a huge portion of this budget is on public input. So I think we could probably get that price tag down. So, and I think it's a good idea to include the planning board on this, and that they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be having to deal with this thing. And certainly make their jobs a whole lot easier. So I guess, in summary, you get what you pay for in some ways, but here again, I think we can economize on some of this plan that they have. You agreed with this too.
Absolutely.
That we've already got more than enough public input. How many times you gotta say, well, we wanna be a family beach? How many times you heard that? And you know what goes along with that, at least, and there's no point in having a big exercise. Have 100 people come up here and say the same thing. So there are some economies that we can.
And how much did we pay for all of the Parks and Rec master plan? I'm pleased to see that one included in it, and the golf cart transportation study that was done in late 2010 or something.
I have no idea. The big house issue showed the flaws in our ordinance.
No.
It was right there in front of us. 70% of the people that walked in front of me said absolutely no. Me and Mr. Edwards had no choice. Our ordinance allowed it. There was nothing we could do at a staff level to stop it. It took a moratorium, 3 joint meetings, and a rewrite of the ordinance, and it still wasn't what y'all decided to do. We've got to plan for the future instead of react to every problem. We're going to have somebody come here and try to do something different based on the 5,000, 7, and 7. It's already happening. When we had 2 houses submitted, 7 bedrooms, they're not 5,000 square feet, but they're 7 bedrooms. They got 7 parking spots. The first opportunity for it to happen, it's going to happen. And we're going to have the same uproar. Are we going to rewrite everything again when that happens? Or are we going to stop it before it happens?
And we can also include on this, we now have what is probably going to be close to the new floodplain maps. And we have so many houses that are in that VE zone that is 41 feet. And they may save a bunch on insurance, but we're going to have to do something about allowing them to rebuild after disasters back up to 41 feet if they were built at that height. It's kind of like the freeboard. It keeps changing every year.
Well, freeboard is what it is. Here's a perfect example. And I don't know which house I reviewed recently, but if you look at the flood map that was just the preliminary flood map, right now it's in a VE 18. When that map goes into effect, it's in an AE 10.
Mm-hmm.
It would never get to 41 feet in height in an AE 10. Our ordinance only allows 35 feet. We can't stop them today. If I owned 10 second-row lots today, I'd build 10 41 feet houses and hope like heck nobody builds on those lots in front of me until after that map goes into effect, because they'll be lower than my house by 6 feet.
Madam Mayor, we've got a motion on the floor, and I think we've discussed it long enough. Call the question.
Okay. Council will agree to call the question? Okay. If no further discussion, all those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Thank you, Council Painter.
I don't object to going to the planning board. I really don't. I think it's appropriate. I'm just stating my flabbergasted.
No money,
Well,
no money.
I understand Councilor Painter's concern. Yeah. And we've not voted to spend any money
That's right. I agree.
yet.
Yeah.
That's the 3-letter
Okay,
word, yeah.
next is the new business item that was added. It's approval of the auditor selection. Bonnie's going to explain to us the benefits.
I passed out tonight at each of your places a council agenda memo that's been added with regard to auditor selection. As you're all aware, we are required to engage an auditor to perform services of financial statement preparation and audit. And we are needing to do that for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014. And as most people are aware, we have been late in preparing and submitting our audit to the public for the last few years, and we've made a lot of strides in that area. We've updated our tax system, we've got new staff, we've got a lot of different things going on that we're moving forward and trying to be more timely with our reporting this year. And with that, we've had discussions in the past that the town had the intention of changing auditors periodically so that we could have a fresh perspective and new eyes on our information. We had, by schedule, would have done that last year, but because of the delay that we were in, we were not able to get through that process, and we continued with our prior auditor, who's done a wonderful job, not anything against their performance. But however, we are recommending that the town council consider a new auditing firm to perform our audit starting this year. I have met with audit staff from this firm. We've looked at their qualifications. We've looked at others as well. And one of the limitations that we have this year is because we have been delayed in preparing that information and having it submitted. We really are being encouraged by the local government commission to make sure that we're more timely in our reporting this year, and we're taking that seriously. One of the key reasons that this firm seemed like a good choice to me is that due to the delayed timeline of getting started, here it is in September and we're looking at an auditor rather than earlier in the year, if we're able to provide them all the information that they're requesting by September 30th, they feel they can turn our audit in time to get it back by the October 31st deadline. Which is a very aggressive timeline, to be quite honest. The firm does have experience doing governmental audits. They do audits for other area municipalities as well. And in the packet, I've included both a listing of some of their other clients as well as brief synopsis of the qualifications of the proposed audit team. The total amount of the contract would not exceed $44,000 based on their proposal annually, and that isn't terribly out of line with what we've paid for audit in the last several years. They have their individual unit costs are listed for the principal and for the other level staff in the audit. And so the way this works is that the town council would approve a contract that then goes to the LGC, and the LGC approves the audit contract for us. So what we're asking in the form of this agenda item is that the council would grant authority for us to enter into a standard audit contract that would be subject to approval by the LGC with this firm, which is S. Preston Douglas and Associates. They have 3 offices out of Whiteville, Lumberton, and Elizabethtown. And they, like I said, they are doing work for other local municipalities at this point. But we're asking that you consider allowing us to enter into that contract for services for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014, at a fee not to exceed $44,000. One of the other things I noted in the agenda memo item is that they've provided a cost estimate for the next 2 years after that, so they've given us 3 years of proposals. However, this contract that we would enter into would only be for this year, and each year after that, it would be up to the sitting council and to the firm to provide a new estimate and enter into a contract should we decide to continue forward with them at that point.
How does it compare with what we're paying now?
The hourly rates are a little higher, but they estimate that they can do it in less time. The total contract amount is right in line with what we've been paying.
So we're paying about $44,000 a year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And this would have to be approved by the LGC.
That is correct.
Is this a Benny Brook?
It is not. It's not engineering services or architectural. It is professional services, but not engineering or architectural. And we've looked at it, that this firm has the team that they would be using. They've assigned what they anticipate using is 4 auditors. Of that, 3 of those would be CPAs. 1 would be a staff accountant. Excuse me, one of their CPAs is also a certified fraud examiner. Not that we have any reason to bring that in and think that we need it at this point. However, I mean, that's a qualification that you don't find in a lot of places. In other words, they're a highly qualified firm. They have over 30 years of municipal experience in their firm. And after talking with them, one of the things I was pleased at is one of the auditors that they would assign to the engagement was previously a finance director in the state of North Carolina for 5 years before she went to work in public practice. So she knows the role of exactly what we do in government, and that is of key importance in my mind to finding a qualified auditor.
Madam Mayor?
Please.
I move the council grant authority to enter into a standard audit contract subject to approval by the local government commission with S. Preston Douglas and Associates LLP for audit and financial statement preparation services for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014, at a fee not to exceed $44,000.
Have a motion by Councilor Painter, please. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Weinkoff. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Thank you for that work on that, Bonnie. Mr. Eads?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have anything with our pending litigation that is time-intensive so that we could not defer closed session until the workshop about the golf carts?
No, ma'am, I mean, there's no need tonight.
Okay. Would council like to defer closed session until after the meeting or workshop? That being the case, if there's no other business that council needs to bring forward, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Councilor Kaiser?
Second.
Somebody second that.
Yeah, don't leave me hanging.
All those in favor, please. Thank you. It is unanimous. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and staying through this whole meeting tonight.
A little